Texas Open Meetings Act. The time is now 6:02 p.m. The following board members are in attendance: Tracy Miller, Allison Lasan, Angie Cox, Jenny Prosnick, Rhonda Timish, Catherine Sells. Ms. Hassett will not be joining us this evening. I've asked Mr. Miller to lead us in prayer. Mr. Miller?
Let's pray. Father, we come to you tonight thankful and grateful that we can come together in democracy and have open civil discussion in a safe environment and in a way that we can have different perspectives and opinions, but yet come together and do what's best, in this case, for LISD. And while we often say how blessed we are, and we acknowledge that, and we thank you, Father, we also know that there are people on staff or in our community, parents, who are experiencing sickness, who have experienced loss, and some just in need of hope. And we want to just ask for some special consideration for them this evening, that you'll provide the things that they need to thrive. And Father, we fully are aware that if kids are hungry, sick, tired, scared, or they don't come to our schools, we can't educate them. And so we thank you also for the great system of support that we have in our community with nonprofits and community leaders and even teachers and staff and administrators who invest back in our kids outside of their regular jobs. We're grateful for that. And we commit this evening to you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. We'll move on to our cornerstone, Dr. Rogers.
Yes, thank you. So we chose, I use resources in an effective and efficient way that serves others. One, we're talking about a lot of different things under the finance report, construction and GMPs and online applicant training, tracking portal, but also the work that we're going to hear about later about the library work group and sort of their review of those resources. We felt like that was a great statement, so out of student experience.
Perfect, thank you. Persons desiring to address the Board of Trustees must fill out a speaker's card. No presentation shall exceed 3 minutes. The board cannot deliberate on any subject that is not included on the agenda. At this time, we have no speakers. Moving on, Dr. Raff, the Learning and Teaching Report.
Yes, so tonight we're going to have an accountability update. I'm asking Dr. Fitzhugh to go ahead and come on up here. And there have been some things that we've observed since the accountability system has gone live that we want to have the opportunity to share with you since we last saw you all about accountability, and then also the opportunity to provide just an update about what we know regarding targeted improvement plans and school intervention requirements. So with that, I'll let Dr. Fitzhugh get started.
All right. Good evening. So tonight we have a few things that we're going to cover. We're going to talk about our substitute assessments. There have been some updates and changes from TEA with that. Some A to F updates, and then, like Dr. Rapp said, targeted improvement planning. So TEA submitted a waiver to the U.S. Department of Education about substitute assessments, and basically they were told that we were not granted that waiver. And so as a result, we will no longer be able to allow students to use substitute assessments in place of EOCs if the students have not attempted the EOC at least once. Now, that's all verbal because TEA plans to release it in a statement in January. So what we're currently looking at in terms of students is that this fall, students will be able to request to use a substitute assessment, their PSAT 8, PSAT 9, score in place of the EOC. But moving forward for the spring administration, students will have to attempt the EOC one time. The other piece that came with that is that substitute assessments will no longer count in accountability. So it used to be that if a student used a substitute assessment in place of an EOC, that the test counted at the approaches and meets level. Now they will no longer count at all, so we will lose those scores from our performance calculations. The impact I anticipate, it'll be a little bit. High school, their domain 1 is 40% star, their domain 2 is 100% star, and their domain 3 is 50% star. So in allowing substitute assessments, we're removing some of the highest performing students out of those calculations. Again, we can only allow it for this fall, and we're going to ask that students request to use the substitute assessment. In the spring, students will have to attempt the EOC. That all is coming from TEA and the Department of Ed, and we don't have any wiggle room with those pieces. Okay.
So let me just jump in real quick. This is a great continuing point with our elected officials that we need to continue to address, that, you know, we're making students to take multiple tests. They certainly need to take the PSAT, and yet that doesn't count in place of the EOC. And, you know, so it's a ridiculous system that we need to continue to complain about.
And I will say, as a district, we didn't take it lightly. We have called and advocated as much as we can, but TEA's opinion is that it is at the federal level that the change has to be made. So we're kind of in those battles between our ESSA submission, Department of Ed, and TEA with who owns how that gets changed. Okay, so A to F, I went around just because it was so complex and there was so much going on. I took a bunch of time and met with each campus and went over their A to F rating and how it was calculated, so that way they would be able to have conversations to the best of their ability with their community. And so just kind of as a brief fill-in, reminder, review, the accountability system has 3 domains that split into 4 pieces. The first domain is student achievement. The second one is about student progress and closing, and then the third one is closing performance gaps. It utilizes 4 sets of data, really elementary and middle schools is just 2, college, career, military readiness, STAR, graduation rates, and TELPAS. So simply put, the best I could try to describe the system with arrows, this is the best I could do. I tried really hard, and I feel like I left a few arrows off, to be honest. So domain 1, if you're in elementary or middle school, they take STAR and split it into 3 areas. They look at the test to see if it's approaching, to see if it's meets, and to see if it masters. And that's how your domain 1 score is calculated. For high schools, graduation is also included, and college, career, military readiness. All of that figures in. They compute component scores off of each of those pieces. Those are kind of like raw scores. It's your average, it's your total numbers. The second domain still utilizes STAR, but rather than the 3 performance levels, it looks at progress. So for elementary schools, it's 4th and 5th grade reading and math. For middle schools, it's 6th, 7th, and 8th reading and math. And then high schools, it's English 2 and Algebra 1. Progress leads to a component score. Domain 2B takes all of those STAR pieces again. It basically looks at what % of your campus is economically disadvantaged and says, how does that domain 1 score really look based on how many economically disadvantaged students you serve? So what we're finding is that if you have a small % of economically disadvantaged students, TEA expects your domain 1 score to be really high. Whereas if you have a larger % of economically disadvantaged, it's more of a middle level. And the last area, which is the one that kind of has the most conversation, I'm telling you, I made this as simple as possible, and I think I do. I left off a few arrows. TEA in Domain 3, Closing the Gaps, looks at all the data by various student groups. They've split it into 4 different sections depending on what type of campus you are. So the first one is academic achievement. That's for elementaries, middle schools, and high schools. They're weighted differently It looks at reading and math meets in masters. So they've taken the approaches groups out by student group, how many of the students are at the meets or masters level. The next area is growth. That just applies to elementary and middle school, and it's just about progress again. The third area on there is graduation. That's just for high schools. The fourth is TELPAS, and the expectation is that students increase a proficiency level each year, which isn't necessarily 100% practical because when you're an advanced speaker, jumping to advanced high takes more than a year. The next area is student success status. That's basically your domain 1, all of your tests split out by student groups. It just goes to elementary and middle schools. And then the last area is school quality, which is just for high schools, and that's college, career, military readiness. So you put all that together. Everything has a component score. Each component score gets put into a separate scaling formula. Okay, all the scaling formulas are different. There's a lovely app for that. And basically what comes out is an overall rating that's 70% of the higher of domain 1, 2A, or 2B, so whichever of those three is highest, and then 30% domain 3. Okay? And this is our transparent system that is easy to understand. Those are the exact words. I can't make that up. So, since we have last met, TEA has publicly released our ratings. We are an overall rating of a B as a district. Mathematically, we're an A, but we're a forced B due to some of our campus performances. We are not allowed to be an A. Which got me thinking, and so I did a little bit of my own digging, because that's what I like to do for fun. And I went through and pulled all of the state data by campus, and I grouped them by percent of economically disadvantaged students. Like I said, I talked to every campus. I had lots of conversations. And so basically what I did is I looked at every campus across how they were to see what percent were A's, B's, C's, D's. And the blue group there are the percent of each group that are A's. And as you can see, as your percent of economically disadvantaged increases, you get smaller and smaller in terms of the percent of campuses that are attaining A's. And it just reinforces the system doesn't always measure what they say it measures. Not opposed to accountability, just measure what you say you're measuring and make it equitable and fair. And so TEA has done some pieces, and there's some math, and statistically there's some appropriateness, educationally it's not, but this is where the distribution lies. So these are just some aha moments that I had on my tour that I thought I would share. So the closing the gaps domain, that domain 3, is really the one that when the rubber meets the road gets the ugliest. So elementary and middle school growth is 50% of that domain, which means for our campuses, if our kids are performing at a high level, they've got to stay at that high level consistently for the rest of their academic career to count as a growing student. And it's all measured by standardized tests that's asking above grade level questions to be at the master's level. Elementary and middle school reading and math, 30% that meets or higher, they're part of that domain as well. And then this was just, as I talked to campuses, my heart dropped every time. The component scores for domain 3 that were in the high 80s and 90s, remember that's that raw value, when you put it into the scaling formula, it scales down. So the score that you achieve when it's scaled comes out lower. And so when I called TA and asked about why that happened, they said, well, because that many campuses perform that well, to be an A, it's got to scale backwards. So I went through and counted. We had 4 high schools and 18 elementary schools that had their domain 3 scores scale backwards. Of that, 7 of them dropped a letter grade. So like if you took their component score, it would be a B. When you scaled it, it dropped to a C, or it would be an A and it dropped to a B. Within that, because of that drop, 2 of our campuses had overall ratings drop. If they had used the raw value, they would have had 1 rating, but when they scaled it backwards, it dropped them an overall letter grade. In the same token, the graduation rate is kind of in the same boat. So you have to have if a graduation rate between 98 and 99.9 scales down to a scale score of 95. A graduation rate of 96 to 97.9 scales down to a 90. When we asked about that, we were just told that the graduation rates in Texas were really high and that in order to have an A, you had to be, to have a high A, you had to be really up there. And I think the piece that hits me most is we just came from a national conference where we were told that nationwide the graduation rate was in the low 80s. So in Texas, we are far exceeding the nation, but here in our accountability system, we're scaling those scores back because they're just not quite good enough in the eyes of the creators of the system. The other piece with closing the gaps, and this is in your presentation, and I can provide you a more detailed, a larger printout if you need it. Each group, according to each measurement, has a different target. So for instance, that very top row there is about academic achievement. It's the meets and higher performance. So if you go across that row, the very top row talks about reading, and basically the expectation is that 44% of all of your students have to be at meets or higher on their STAR test. If 44% are at meets or higher, you get a yes in that box. As you go across, 32% of your African American students have to be at meets or higher. You get a yes in that box. 37% for Hispanic, 60% for white. And so as you go across, the things that are triggering accountability pieces are different student groups and different targets. And in some of our campuses, some of our highest performing groups are triggering intervention requirements. The other piece on this one, I can't make this up. So the graduation rate there, you can see it's 90% across. Our high school campuses have no's, even though their graduation rates are above 90%, because once you've met the 90%, it's expected that you increase each year. So we have one campus that in 2017 had a graduation rate of 98.7. In 2018, it dropped to 98.6, so they have a no. We cannot get a yes until we exceed 98.6 for that student group in that area. So we've gotten to the higher ends in some of these pieces. So as I'm talking to high school principals and trying to say, in accountability, this is what the state's looking for, this is how we can improve, we are really at some of the higher ends for some of these pieces. And don't get me wrong, every campus we talked about student growth, the need to be monitoring how we know our students are learning, other measures that we can use to make sure students are learning, but there's just some limitations in this system that make it really difficult to try to explain publicly. So these are just some observations. We contacted TEA because we, like I said, had lots of questions, and basically we were told that the system does have limitations, and that's why it's important for districts to tell our stories. The closing the gaps domain is the domain that's used to trigger 3 of the 4 possible rating options that require interventions. While several areas do scale forward because of the way that TA is using the calculations, the ones that scale back and have lots of impact. And to be honest, in our district, most of our campuses, the system is requiring that a majority of students get to that master's performance level. And to be perfectly honest, the test wasn't written for a majority of students to be masters. So when you're already at the meets, you're already here, how do you keep showing growth and keep getting to that highest master level on a test that's written for that to not be the situation? And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to the interventions that are required.
So part of the reason why going over, if you will, all of the math and the way the system's designed, and especially what Dr. Fitch you shared about Domain 3, is because all of those things can then trigger interventions for schools. And when you look at how the system's designed and the problems and the limitations in the system, and then you think about the interventions a school can face based on the limitations of that system, that's just something we feel like is important to remember as we talk about what's required with the interventions our schools, some of our schools will need to accomplish. So basically, any school that has a rating, an overall rating of an F, an overall rating of a D, one domain rated a D, if you're rated comprehensive support, targeted support, or additional targeted support, any of those ratings cause you to have to follow TEA's system of interventions. And the fact that the interventions are based on that math is why the two are so closely linked together. I put an advocacy note on this slide because there's no doubt that when our legislature meets, they are constantly talking about the impact of standardized testing. But what's happening is that the commissioner has a great amount of authority in the development of the ESSA plan, and that is where a lot of these rules that you're going to hear us talk about tonight regarding intervention requirements, that's where it comes from. And it's almost like those are doubling down on what standardized testing can cause a school to have to do. When the assistant chiefs, Ms. Litchfield, Ms. Godby, and Ms. Lewis and I went with the principals on September 4th and 5th to the service center for training, they trained us for the first time on what they've developed called an effective schools framework. And I thought it was important for you to see this because what they're saying is that an effective school is based on these levers: effective instruction, strong school leadership and planning, well-supported teachers, high-quality curriculum, positive school culture. We would not disagree with any of those things, right? And what TEA is saying is that this effective schools framework is a clear vision for what districts and schools across the state should do to ensure an excellent education for all of Texas. This is the first time that they've tried to define these things for the entire state. And I pulled one example from effective classroom routines and instructional strategies. Just even look at that second bullet. Classroom instruction incorporates rigorous, high-quality experiences that promote critical thinking skills with differentiated and scaffolded supports for students with disabilities and English language learners and other student groups. We agree that that's important. So a school that enters into intervention is going to have to analyze if they have those things in place, but what got you into intervention is how your students did on a STAR test, that I would say is not designed with the different student groups in mind and what they're facing at the time of being tested in elementary school or middle school or high school. So there seems to be, and I'm going to go back one slide because I wrote it here, there just seems to be a disconnect between TEA and the fact that this is what effective schools do, but the way we're going to make you analyze if you're an effective school is based on your STAR data. And we already know the requirement that our schools have to complete campus improvement plans every year, and there doesn't seem to be a recognition that schools already start planning for what are they going to do the following school year in the spring of the previous school year. So what TEA does is they say you're going to complete a targeted improvement plan. We're going to let you know what your rating is on August 15th, and from there we're going to expect you to follow all these timelines that we put together for school improvement. And that's what I have there on that second bullet is I don't know that the timelines really recognize the fact that campus improvement planning truly starts well before August 15th when the children are going to show up. But we're going to force everybody to create a brand new plan, an additional plan that's outside of the things that are in the campus improvement plan. Our assistant chiefs are serving as the district coordinators of school improvement for these schools, and they've been working very hard right alongside these campus principals to complete the requirements. And of course, you have some of the plans coming to you for discussion on October 21st, and I know that you've already had an opportunity to take a look at some of those plans as well. But I just wanted to go over a little bit about the format of what you're seeing in the Targeted Improvement Plan template. It's broken up into 3 cycles, cycles 1, 2, 3, and 4. The campuses were only required to complete cycles 1 through 3 based on the training that we received. And so what we work really hard with the campuses to do is we look at what they're putting in their campus improvement plan, and if you will, we basically laser focus into things that we know are important irregardless of what the STAR test is going to do, things that we know are good and that the schools know are important for them to be working on. The milestones column is basically like a strategies section, and the chiefs work with the schools on identifying those strategies, and then we have to collect evidence along the way, because what's going to happen for our schools who have overall ratings of F or comprehensive support is they are going to have an ESF diagnostic conducted by the service centers, and they're going through all of the evidence and the artifacts that we're collecting from these plans. We submit that to them, and they look through all of that. We'll be bringing you those plans for discussion on Monday the 21st, and then we'll be bringing them for action from these schools, overall rating of F in comprehensive support in November. TEA just released guidance on September 30th saying that we also needed to include a public hearing for schools that received an overall rating of an F, so we'll be including that in the November board agenda. These campuses will also be required to survey students and parents using Panorama. They would have to survey the staff, but because we already use Panorama, they're going to let us use our staff data coming up this spring. For that, we've expressed to them we'd like for them to use our parent survey from our campus profile sheets. At this time, they haven't agreed to that, but I keep continuing to talk to TEA about that as well. Our overall campuses that received a rating of D, those plans will be coming before you at the December board meeting. We're not required to submit those to TEA like we are the overall rating of an F in comprehensive, but TEA could audit if they so choose. A campus with one domain rated a D, those plans will be coming to you at the January board meeting. We're not required to submit those to TEA either. TEA could audit if they so choose there as well. And then campuses who received a rating of targeted or additional targeted support, the assistant chiefs are working with those schools on identifying strategies related to Domain 3 and all that Dr. Fitzhugh explained to you in their campus improvement plans.
Okay, and so moving forward, we are just going to continue to develop local accountability and provide a more detailed accounting of the learning that occurs. We continue to work with campuses on other measures of learning and a variety of assessments. In addition, campus profiles are being sent home mid-October with all students, so that way parents will get to see LISD's data points along with the states when they require us to send that home as well. And with that, I'd like to open up to any questions.
Let's start with Ms. Cox, and we're going to let you ask any and all of your questions. Yeah.
First of all, thank you, Dr. Fitzhugh. I mean, we're so blessed to have you in our district. I'm appreciative of the work. I mean, no one asked you to go out and look up the data, and you did it on your own. So, sincere appreciation for that. My question is, I just have a few questions because honestly, my head is spinning over here. To be quite honest, I feel like I'm looking at the mixed master on 635 on the domains here. So, one of my questions is, what kind of I feel like our leadership, our teachers, they do a fabulous job here. So what type of extra stress, you'd call it, or data they're having to supply is it putting on our teachers? Because, I worry about that, and it takes away from what truly we're trying to do in the classroom.
So in terms of interventions, all the
Yes.
different planning, we've worked really hard to try to align our plans with local pieces that we do and have check-ins with them, and you can probably speak more to that than I can.
Well, I do think that's a note of advocacy with the legislature and with our elected officials, that these school intervention requirements, they're a lot for the schools. They're a lot for the principals, the assistant principals, the chiefs, the teachers, and they're having to gather evidence of things that they're doing, and that's taking time. So I think we try to work really hard to mitigate that on behalf of our teachers and our principals, but the intervention requirements are a lot.
Yeah, so maybe a rally or something we should start. I don't know. One more question. Oh, so just to clarify, those campuses that receive an F rating, you were talking about the new plan that they have to come in place. Does that mean the plan that they originally had goes away totally and they have to start refresh all that, or is it combined? How does that work?
So these campuses specifically didn't have a plan prior with TEA, but basically they just pretty much start fresh with the plans that you all have that were submitted to you in board book, and they pretty much just disregard that the campuses have a campus improvement plan. And I think that would be a note of advocacy too, that you're required to create a campus improvement plan. Why TEA couldn't consider that in the system that they make would be very appreciated. But this plan is brand new for these schools.
Right, Right, so the plan that they created in August, that's gone. Is that what
Well,
you're telling me?
they
or-
didn't have a plan. These schools didn't have a
Okay.
TEA plan in August. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so mine was following up a little bit on Ms. Cox's for the plans, the TEA, so help me walk through this.
Sure.
They want to have their targeted improvement plan. It's based on data that's really a year old.
Correct.
And so what happens when a student's in fifth grade, because the elementary student's not gonna, that child's now in sixth grade.
Mm-hmm.
So do they understand that this is more of an,
Like a postmortem.
yeah,
I mean, I don't know if they fully understand that or not. I don't think so. I think because they're wanting you to develop a plan, to your point, with kids who have already either moved on or are in a different grade level. I think that's the limitation of the system, is that they're saying, here's your data, now act on it, and it's really not completely
so,
actionable.
so if you're creating a plan, really, do they look at that then it needs to be moved up an entire grade for the entire campus? Or they now, you happen to have one grade that struggled in this one area, now the class behind them then has to have an intervention plan that doesn't apply to them?
We basically write the targeted improvement plan so that it meets the needs of what that campus is seeing for their kids, whether the kids have moved on to another grade level or moved on to another building or in another grade level. We work really hard to be sure that what you all are seeing in those plans really meets the needs of that school and doesn't just do so because of what the STAR data said.
Okay, so when they're asking for these intervention plans to be written in August and September for that year, I mean, that just makes no sense to me.
Right, it doesn't.
Because we start planning, like you said, in the spring,
Right.
so do they understand that like we're rewriting, trying to rewrite or accommodate a little too late?
I think they underestimate the amount of work that it takes to develop a plan like that for sure. And I think that they don't think about they're just turning around guidance as they can create it and give it to the school districts, a la the posting of the one requirement on September 30th. You know, they're working as fast as they can, no doubt about it, but it's a very crunched timeline.
And I think the system, Ms. Timish has always been postmortem, so they're waiting to give the test as late as they can in the school year because they want to cover much of the TEKS, and yet they can't turn it around, and so you're always dealing with year-old data, and so you have the dilemma like we talked about. So that's always been the system, though, whether we're talking about STAR or tax, and it's always been a year behind, which has always created that.
And then when we, the substitute assessments, TEA has verbally indicated that districts must have all the students attempt EOCs. About how many students in our district will that change affect?
A lot. We have quite a
that number to
few.
me later.
I'll look up a specific number, but we have quite a few. And for this year, it's going to fall to how many fall in spring, but in the future, it'll be all of them. But I'll look it up.
Dr. Fitzhugh, thank you. So I was thinking of the best word to describe how we should approach the TEA, and I think it's incredulous. That I find this just so unbelievable. Like Angie said, my head's spinning. And when you take what you presented to us in August, where you talked about the post equating, and I think I even did a snippet and put one of those on Facebook, but something like that. When you look at that, it's just that graph that you have with all the arrows pointing. And I just think about our commissioner who talks about, and I'm not going to grandstand too much here, but our commissioner who talks about post-secondary readiness. There is not an employer that I can think of, including just working a job, a high school job or college job as a barista or anything like that, that would agree to a complexity in the way that we measure performance like that. And it just blows me away. And to use the commissioner's own words, for those of us who went to the great luncheon provided at Tasby, the commissioner talked a lot about why young people are not going into the teaching profession. And I think there are a lot of opinions that the commissioner has and the agency has on why that is. But one could also conclude in looking at the graphs, the charts that you've created, that there's good reason, or that may be one of the reasons. So a question would be, how comfortable are we that our teachers really just, this is just an honest conversation, really understand two things: how campuses are measured, that graph, and their role in how the campus is measured?
Probably most teachers aren't going to understand the graph, and of course a lot of the lines that Dr. Fitzhugh drew don't apply to them. If they're elementary, middle school, their system's only part of the lines versus the high school system. But there's no doubt that I actually thought the lines were probably one of the best description of the system that I've seen as far as the complication of it. So, yeah, I think you're right, Mr. Miller. Most teachers don't understand it, and I wouldn't want them to understand. I want them just to continue to do the best job they can for the students that they don't get to pick. Those kids walk in the door, and I think one of the things that caught me off guard as far as a little bit of the stereotypical inaccuracy is I think it was Dr. Fitzhugh talking about that 74% target for Asian students. It was 70-something. I don't have it in front of me.
Or 82, pick whichever subject you like.
But that's making the assumption that all Asian students are going to score higher than whites and African American, and yet we work with an Asian population that comes to our district with, they're amazing students. They will get there, but they're not high performing when we get them. They will be ultimately, but the system's just ridiculous.
So the one thing I get that there are different measurements at elementary, middle, and high school, and they change a little bit. But the one thing, Dr. Fitzhugh, you talked about is that there is this kind of handoff, this kind of they need to continue to perform at a certain level, which tells me that the integration of how accountability flows from an elementary, middle, and high school level, and therefore administrator level, has to be, that sequencing and that handoff has to be really crisp, assuming that this system has legitimacy to it. But, right? I mean, how do we...
I don't even think it's between levels. To be perfectly honest, there's always a dip. I'm going to use math because that's what I taught. There's always a dip in 7th grade math scores, even without us having students jump. There always is. 6th grade math, the kids perform here. 7th grade, they dip. There's all sorts of reasons why. The problem is because the system's trying to measure growth from year to year, it doesn't take that dip into account. So our students who are performing at masters in 6th grade might miss 2 extra questions in 7th grade. Still perform amazing, but according to TEA, there's no growth there because they missed 2 additional questions and dropped out of that master's category. So I think that's the piece just across the board, even if you're not, if you want to assume there's some legitimacy, it's how do you keep your students only missing 3 or 4 questions every year once they've performed at that level? Because that's what it takes to get to masters and stay masters. Does that help?
And Dr. Fitzhugh, I remember I attended something with the commissioner that, hey, if students score A's, we're going to give them an A. If they're not going to decide how many A schools, B schools, and yet the scaling down system prevents that exactly what the commissioner in a meeting I was at publicly said is we're not going to say, hey, there has to be this many F schools, this many D schools, But scaling down is doing exactly that. Is that fair?
Well, and so what they would say right now, just because I've spoken to TA a lot, what they'll say is they had to build the system based on some thresholds and historical data, which is where the normal curve comes in, although it's not a perfect normal curve. But they're saying they're not changing the targets from when they initially put it in place, so everybody has the chance to get an A, because they're not going to reset the targets once the data comes in terms of accountability. But they reset the targets on the test, so since they control both ends of the system, they can scale it how they want to be perfectly honest. But yes, that was said, but they're playing word games.
My last question is on the substitute assessment. I think I know of a situation this year where one of those assessments was used for a student, and she then passed. Going forward, if these were not allowed, so I think in the past, that somewhere up to the campus leader can make a decision on using that assessment, the second substitute assessment. Going forward, how would we manage that?
So going forward, this fall, students can request to use their substitute assessment score, whatever test it is. Starting in the spring, the student will have to have at least attempted the EOC one time. After that initial attempt, they can then utilize a substitute assessment, but it'll have to be that they request to and that they approach their testing coordinator.
Okay, so this is, in this situation as an example, it was the student's mentor who came up with the idea, okay? What are we doing to make sure that students who don't have the parental structure or mentoring structure know that they could use those assessments as an option, or to make that request in the time period you...
Moving forward, starting in the spring?
Well, you said that, I think
In the fall, they can. So in the past, we've notified all students and let them know. We're not going to notify them all this fall because of all the different implications. They can come forward. But once they've attempted the EOC, we have some of the best testing coordinators in the state, and they look across student histories and they see if you haven't met a standard, we're going to find if your substitute assessment works for you. So once they've attempted it once, then they will be advocates, and they're looking through histories to see if there's something else.
So, you failed the test for the EOC. At that point, there's going to be a trigger within the system, kind of the ecosystem of support, to look at each individual student and what their options are.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mrs. Hassan?
Ms. Timmis actually had my question about the number of students, so I'll, go with that answer when we get it. So I guess I just wanted to say, it really does make me feel so much better to know that you and Dr. Rapp have got this, because, I feel like as you explain it to us, you guys are noticing things, and I know you're calling TEA, and I know you're advocating for us, and thank you for helping educate us to, do what we need to do to help, with this. And I guess my only comment that I wanted to say is this closing the gaps performance targets chart on page 5, I think it's slide 10, where it has the, the different ethnic backgrounds. This chart, you showed us this before, and it just kills me. It just kills me. I hate to say it, but it's almost just like racial profiling here, with these skills. And I just want to say that publicly. This is a terrible, terrible, terrible thing. That's it for me.
Okay, Ms. Crosby?
First of all, thank you for your hard work. I like to equate this to a shell game, and under every cup is the STAR test. So
That's right.
It's basically what it is, especially for a legislature that proclaims to not value the STAR test, etc. I find it amazing that they let an accountability system rely so heavily on it. I do have some questions. So I understand the timeline for us to get the the TIP, the TIP. But what is but we're not going to approve that. The earliest one we're going to approve is in November.
Right.
So, I mean, last time I checked, we started school in August.
Right.
So what does that mean for our campuses?
In terms of their plan being...
In terms of implementation.
Oh, okay. So basically, what we've tried to think about with the items that you all are seeing on the targeted improvement plan, what are things that are expansion of their campus improvement plan that they would be working on anyway, because we're constantly working to improve. And so y'all are seeing basically another layer of detail beyond what the campus improvement plan shows. Some of those things we said we've gone ahead and started. So you'll see on cycle 1, even though it had to start in September, some things were referenced as starting in August, because we told the campuses, if you've already started something that's moving the needle on improving an area you've identified to improve, then let's go ahead and write that down and give ourselves credit for that, if you will. It's weird to chunk them out in cycles 1, 2, and 3. I think that's the hardest part of the format, because many of these things that you all see on there are things that intervention and enrichment groups. The campuses already are identifying students for intervention and enrichment. We didn't put that in some campuses in cycle 1, we put it in cycle 2, but just because we put something in cycle 2 doesn't mean we're not doing it in cycle 1, but the more you write, the more evidence and artifacts you've got to put in your Google folder for the diagnostic to be looked at. So I think the campuses feel good about how they've broken activities up on those cycles, but it's a little artificial of a timeline break, if that makes sense.
Kind of my point, that we were already probably doing most of these things.
As we're constantly working to improve all the time anyway. But.
So, and this is where Joe Bob Annison, I just remember that name.
Joe Bob.
From before. So are we going to have to go back out and her or somebody like her, is that going to be the next step? Or?
So great question. And so what the state did is they did away with the professional service provider network. That's what Joe Bob was a part of. And they instead are doing the Effective Schools Framework diagnostics with the service centers. So you're assigned an ESF facilitator. Some service centers are using service center personnel for that. Some service centers are contracting. So people like Joe Bob may have a repurposed job being an ESF facilitator. Region 11 is choosing to do all of their ESFs with their Region 11 staff. So we've been assigned a person from the service center that will do that work.
And do you think that that could put us at a disadvantage for someone who is not familiar with our district and our processes and our systems, or?
Yeah, I think probably too early for me to comment on that yet. So far, the phone calls that we've participated in with the service center, Ms. Lewis did one this morning with Durham. He was very complimentary and said all of our work was very organized, some of the most organized that he'd ever seen a district have. The hard part of the system is we have to be on phone calls with your ESF facilitator. You have an ESF case manager from the service center. You have an assigned TEA person, and they all expect you to make phone calls, and their schedule and the ESF people schedule visits, and the ESF system does cost money, and so there are some things where we will have to pay for the service center to do diagnostics and things of that nature as well.
So they won't be using our diagnostics?
We do get to turn over data to them that we collect, but their diagnostic is against the Effective Schools Framework, and so that's what they'll be analyzing for.
Sounds like lots of fun. And since we have a chance to get an A, I say we also have a chance to go out and buy a lottery ticket tonight and win the lottery.
Valid point.
What's the odds on that?
Yeah.
The odds of us.
She would know.
I haven't done that math. I have too many brain cells caught up in accountability to do those odds.
Steve, funny. Okay, I had a few questions. The question about the students, I would be curious, as well as the others have mentioned, that we would like to know how many students that affect and moving forward. And then, let me see my notes. I had under here that understanding of this is probably, even in our community and our parents, they see our rating and they don't understand. They think it is so simple that how we did that. And so I was wondering, based on those that were scaled down and scaled up, have you, using those that were scaled down, would we recalculate any differently?
We would, I believe, hold on, look at
And
my.
did you? I
We
mean,
had
I think it
two
was-
that their overall ratings changed, and I think we have 7 that went down a letter grade in that domain as a result of the scale
Would that
down.
have changed our overall grade?
2 of them would, as a district, no, it wouldn't
No,
change
it
our
would not,
district,
no.
but it would have changed 2
Right.
campuses overall.
And then, I think that Dr. Rogers already alluded to this, but I had, in that Asian population, that does include our Chin community, right? And, I also heard our TEA commissioner speak, and he said that the things that we trustees need to do is not allow the achievement gap to happen in the first place. And so, and I wrote down his words, I looked them up in my phone as he said them, and so I just wanted to publicly state that we do not allow anything of the such, and I would wonder if he would care to look into that maybe the gap was there when we received those students, and so so that
Yeah, it'd be nice not to allow mobility
absolutely
factors and a lot
Yeah.
of other things. That's not realistic.
right. So, and then who did the ESF training for you guys?
So the service center conducts the ESF training. There was a TEA person in the room. Actually, she's the one that's assigned to our school district. But they conduct the training based on what TEA creates.
Okay, and then I also had who will do through them, but Ms. Prosnick asked that question, and then the cost. If you could just keep us apprised of the cost as those occur, I would like to follow that through that process of what it is continuing to cost us, and then also any feedback that you get from the campuses or the teachers about, we want them to teach. I mean, this is about student achievement, but if we're so into the weeds about this data point and those charts that look like, you said they were like the 635 mixed master. I mean, when you get into that, are we really, where's the kids and all that? I mean, it tends to seem that we move away so much into the data points at times through TEA that I'm not sure that they really understand that not all children are
Test takers.
Yes, yeah, are test takers. And so, that would be my other comment, and let me keep moving here. I think that was it that wasn't covered by others, but thank you again. Yes, go ahead.
I think that there's some great input, some great comments. I was gonna just, offer a couple thoughts for consideration. Number one, Dr. Rogers, whether it's administration or we consider direction from the board, I would like to see us personally invite the commissioner to come to our district and visit schools and have a conversation. The reason I'd like to see us personally do that is to put him in a position to either accept or reject that. And so just thought for consideration.
Sounds like a good Twitter campaign.
Well, I
I think there needs to be a formal,
It could be followed up with that, but I think a
Yes,
formal
a
request
formal request.
without him feeling beat up on social media, and then we would have to make sure that it's a good, effective meeting. But I think having him be here in a district like ours that mathematically is an A, but because of some of the blah blah blah, we're a B. The other thing is, I know we keep talking about that it's not about the test, but here's the problem with the tip. The tip is also very prescriptive from the TEA. And we've, for those of us that have been doing this for a little longer than some of you, this is not new. And here's what it goes through. You start looking at color, paint, the campus leader. There are a series of things starting at the top that you focus on. So it's easy to say the test is not the most important thing, and it's not. But what I would say is if we really mean that the board takes some action, that provides some protection against actions that would result in lack of compliance or conformance within the TIP. Because it is so prescriptive, right? Now, I think there, by the way, there have been over the years things that you look at these improvement plans, and there are good things for you to look at. There's no doubt about the overall effectiveness can be driven by some of these attributes within that process. But if we're going to say, because we say it every year, the test is not important, then let's figure out how to do something about that. And I'm not talking social media or anything like that. I'm talking about what is it that we need to do? Do we need to get the North Texas Regional Consortium together and take a stand? Do we need to say, fine, you know what? We're not going to put a TIP in place for that campus. As an example, what would happen if we just chose not to do a TIP for a certain campus?
I'd lose my certification.
Okay.
So let's wait a few years
So-
on that.
But see, therein is the point, right? The same with teachers that don't take it. That's the problem with this. The agency holds on to something that's very dear, which is your ability to make money and have a career, is tied to, right? So just we keep saying it's not important. Here's the reality. It's important. We hate it.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Miller, and if we've said it's not important and I've misspoke, I've just said it's never the most important, because to me there's a difference there. And I think for them, if you think of the pressure that's put on teachers, then I promise you, if teachers are under pressure to perform for that one-day test, students are under pressure to perform, and you wonder about, all that pressure. I mean, it's so we've continued to relay to our elected officials, to the commissioner, and we've written the commissioner probably, 3-4 times. I mean,
A lot.
with very prescriptive suggestions on how this can be improved. It's fallen on pretty deaf ears. That's my opinion.
And I think they aren't quite for sure what to do with this always. When we sit on these CEA calls, what I would reassure you is that they expect to see a targeted improvement plan that's really designed around the STAR test. And then when they don't, and they want to go down the path of, well, what all did you analyze about your STAR data? And then we say to them, well, that STAR data is one point in time. You see, we have a school system that focuses on the whole overall health and well-being of all of our children. So our milestones are written, and they just don't even know what to do with that. I mean, I'm pretty sure so we're constantly pushing upstream as well on behalf of our principals and staff.
I do have a question. Does the TIP have to be, like our campus improvement plans are on the websites, will the TIP also have to be posted or not?
It does not have to be posted.
But I totally get your point.
Thank you.
And great appreciation for Dr. Fitzhugh.
Does anybody have any additional? Nothing? Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Okay, moving on. We are going to Mr. Ball.
a lot of finance.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Sales. This item has to do with an online applicant tracking portal that Employee Services has identified a need to upgrade that system. The district, for a number of years, well over a decade, has used a applicant tracking portal that hasn't been updated, I think, for the most part, in the entire time the district's been using it. And there's a need now to be more interactive with the applicants as they apply, and also to be able to have better data about who our hiring administrators are actually interviewing, and a number of data points like that associated with the hiring process. And so the recommendation is coming on the 21st to upgrade that to a new system. That will also come with a budget amendment, because that is an additional cost for the district, as is the next item we'll be talking about in just a moment. But that's what this is, and hopefully it will significantly improve
And Dr. Bonner and a group looked at a lot of different options, so, I mean, it was a bid out, a bid, and so, I don't know if you want to add anything briefly, Buddy, to it, or?
Very briefly, and thank you, Mr. Ball, for that description of the item. Yes, the RFP was done. A group of a dozen campus and district administrators looked through the respondents to that. And I would just add to Mr. Ball's description a moment ago, if you think about the phone you were using in the early 2000s, that's a good example of the applicant tracking system that we have. It just hadn't progressed through the multiple iterations of what's available on the web, internet right now. And so we anticipate all the things that Mr. Ball described, plus more enhanced availability over social media, better tracking of people prior to and once in the system. We just really think it'll be a game changer.
Does anybody have any questions? And let's start with Ms. Timish.
Okay, thank you. I do have a question. Is this, I know with some of these portals, is it similar to like have the option kind of like Apply Texas where you can put all that detailed information and then shoot it to different school districts? Or do you know what I'm referring to?
Yes, ma'am. The primary respondent to this is a vendor that has a hub for applicants, and that's one of the benefits to applicants is they can provide their information to this hub, which we can then access, but other districts can't access it, much like our current vendor as well.
I knew that, but with this system, is it, because I just think the more user-friendly it can be, not only on our side, but for the applicant side, I mean, just like with college students, I mean, you're going to go, I think if this can be an easier system, I think we're going to have more applicants.
Absolutely, yes, ma'am. If I'm understanding your question correctly, they would have access to multiple districts through their hub. That's correct.
Well, but she's asking, is it easy for the user, not the end user, but the applicant? And,
yes, ma'am.
And I would say that.
Yes, ma'am.
So we've gone in and we've tried to apply it ourselves, and it's
the staffing administrators in our office are familiar with this product, and it's actually one that they are quite in favor of.
How many school districts are using
300.
it? Huh?
300
Oh.
in the state.
All right. Perfect. Is it just for Texas, or does it put us with other states?
They have multiple districts in the state and outside the state as well.
I'm sorry, multiple outside of the
Outside the state as well, yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. That's it, Ms. House.
Mr. Miller?
Yeah, so I appreciate this coming forward, and absolutely, I've seen the system, but, I trust you guys in HR, Dr. Bonner. Here's the problem I have. It's a fiduciary one. We're weeks into our new budget, and we're talking about a budget amendment over something that we're hearing about today for the first time, that we don't have numbers for. We've not seen the rubric for it, nor the other options, which may be in our board book for review already or not. But
It is.
okay, but here we're talking about this for the first time, and we're talking about a budget amendment. I'm uncomfortable with that.
Yeah, let me jump in on.
Here's what I would say.
Okay.
We were a business, this would be the discussion. Hey, it's great. Probably a priority for us. So where are we going to cut to offset the expense here? In which other area, in which other department, so that we can fund it? I'm not saying it's not important. I think in a digital-first world, with the folks that are coming to us, et cetera, we probably need this emphatically, but this.
Yeah, let me chime in for a minute, Mr. Miller. So the budget amendment part, we, and this was a decision that I made in discussion, is we're going to start bringing other budget amendments forward because we believe that in our system we need, for us on the administrative side as well as for the board to understand what costs are associated to things if we hadn't planned. So let me give you another example of a budget amendment that I'm going to bring forward is Gibson Consulting. All right, Gibson Consulting is going to cost us money that we did not plan on, and I think it's a good expense, but we as a group need to understand. And so the next item, the courier services, is another example that we're going to bring that as a budget amendment. It's not an option. We're going to have the courier service. We could find
the $50,000 difference, but I think that it probably is beneficial for the organization transparently to say, hey, we've got to get courier service, and it's going to cost us $50,000 more. And we're going to bring that to the board to approve instead of us just covering it. I mean, we can move some stuff around. And so I totally get your point that, midstream, which is why budget amendments are required. So I get your point. I'm just saying we're trying to change what happens on our side to make it clear, hey, I mean, Dr. Bonner, whenever your group approved that we need this new applicant tracking system, and that's costing us $50,000 more, and we need Dr. Bonner and his group to understand that, or whenever we're forced by our bank to have a different courier service, we want to bring it forward to the board to say, hey, we need a budget amendment on this amount, and here's why. And so we felt like that's more transparent, to be honest with you, than just covering it. So that's why. Anyway, that's our rationale.
I understand, and I would respectfully disagree that we need to do budget amendments that frequently. I think you do a budget amendment 2 or 3 times a year as you reconcile. I know why we're doing it, because of what we believe is a perceived liability in not making our budget. But again, I would be very curious next Monday as to what areas we looked at giving on so that we could fund these, because in the environment that we're in, when we're seeking business professionals to provide us input on best practices, a best practice at this juncture in anyone's budget would be, we look at these areas to offset the expense that we're asking you to incur, because this was a priority. Now, Gibson Consulting, you could bring it back as a, that's another example of where we're going to do that. If that's the way you guys want to do it, so be it. Again, my question's going, because there is discretionary money that we have for those types of projects. The board can find money to do those projects. So I think throwing the Gibson thing out there in the context of this, I would just say this. If our protocol is going to be that we're going to do a budget amendment every time we come up with a good idea and need to fund it, and we're not going to have a discussion about business case, and the board's not going to see the rubric and the decision process for how we selected that, then
The rubric is in the board document, Mr. Miller. So
I'm looking
you
at,
had the chance to see it.
well, we just got that last week, and the board meeting's not till, right?
2
So-
weeks from tonight, so.
Right, so if I was to look at it for tonight, right, we get those a week and a half in advance for a reason. It's not that we look at it 10 days in
No,
advance. We may not get to it. So,
I'm just saying it's there. I'm not saying you had to have read it. I'm just saying it is there.
okay, great, it's there. So then, will we talk next week about what areas we looked at to offset expense to fund this type of project?
No, I mean, you're looking at a budget a little different than I am. I'm looking at, budgets are what are potential expenditures in every category that we're not going to spend every area, but if we can cover it, if that's the way you want to handle things, but we felt like as on our side of the table, we needed our folks to understand that every time you come up with something, for instance, I'll give you an example. So we've been having 2 weeks of discussions about what to do with support staff in AVLS classrooms, COM classrooms, BIC classrooms, talking about classroom aides. There are 15 of those positions not filled. Now, we've been having 2 weeks of discussion before I finalize, and I can find the money, but that ought to be a decision that the board has some input on, and the only way to do that is through a budget amendment, to say, you know what, it's worth it for us to pay that group of folks more, and so we would bring a budget amendment forward to you. I mean, I know school districts, every time they spend money above and beyond to send groups to state playoffs, UIL marching band, they bring that back as a budget amendment in a positive way. To say, hey, LISD is spending more money to send these 3 bands to state marching than we had originally planned. So I see it as a positive to bring these things forward, not really meant to put the board behind the 8 ball. That was never the intent, I promise you.
Well, I don't think there was any malintent. I think there are 2 issues here. There is a statement that we're going to have a budget amendment, which has distracted us from the acquisition or procurement of this system. Those are the 2 issues. But they're combined. Because to do one, we're going to be asked to do the other. And here, if you look at our budget, even when we start doing next year's budget, it is hard for John Q. Public to be able to figure out, well, is that the budget they started the year with, or are they on revision 4 when you go out to the accounting page on the website and you look at the budget, you got to track with it that was the amended budget. And I'm just suggesting that if we have all of a sudden changed our practice of when we amend the budget, I think that's just a discussion for us to have, and it's probably not on the agenda for tonight. But if we are going to be asked to approve this and amend the budget in the same meeting, then I think...
You're not. That
Okay,
will come
so-
forward. Is that in October?
It
or-
is on
Okay, or
November.
November. I couldn't remember. You know, the way for me, the way I look at a budget amendment is if we add funds to HR, to employee services, then that allows us to know we've given them $50,000 more for this process. And so, in the same way, if one of Mike's departments doesn't use $50,000 at the end of the year, we change their budget. We're going to increase his for 2021, and we're going to decrease. I mean, it's a record-keeping process for us to do, but we can certainly discuss that later. That's not the intent of.
And I think that back when we were doing the budget, we asked Mr. Ball, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Miller, to be as accurate as he could be and to make sure that our deficit was, do you remember where I'm going on this? And so I would rather have had the budget that we accepted than to have had a budget that showed a $20 or $25 million deficit, and to have allowed to just cover all this stuff without discussion and approval by the board.
And we also stated
Which
that.
we could easily do. It's a way a lot of organizations run.
Well, if I may, respectfully, first of all, what we asked was, a number of years ago, to try and close the gap between revenue and expense so that was tighter. I think the finance team has done a great job with that. But what I'm hearing is that in that attempt, that what we did was we came up with a budget rather than showing a deficit. We went into this year showing less of a deficit, but understand what we're being asked to do here. Make an amendment to increase the deficit. That's what this is. And what I'm suggesting, respectfully, that if we want to incorporate, if we want to go out to our public and ask businessmen and women to come together with ideas, I'm giving you an idea here, and that is that you come back and say, here's what we decided to give on for now, this early in the budget year, so that we could fund this, because it's a priority. Now, if later on in the year, there's another area where we need to provide some relief because there's a good business case around it, so be it. But this thing went from, we hear we've got very limited procurement staff, so we'll use co-ops, and we've got limited staff, so we don't want to do a lot of RFPs. All of a sudden, this went from nowhere to we've done an RFP, and there's a rubric in here, and there's pricing and everything, and we're going to be asked to spend the money and change the budget. It just seems to me that's a little bit of a surprise in sequence, a little bit of a concern that we don't have a lot of procurement staff, so we're doing RFPs that the board has not even been made aware of, and so I'm just trying to reconcile all this.
Mr. Miller, I have a question. So, as a business owner, as Tim's business owner too, you work for a big company. People amend budgets all the time.
So just to understand your question, because I see where you're going with this, and so Dr. Rogers, the ultimate question will be for you, is you're trying to be a good steward, obviously, of the district, because we are going to have budget amendments, and they come up with things we don't know. The audit is one of them, which I'm fully in favor of. So, Dr. Rogers, would it be possible, because I see what Mr. Miller is trying to do, is show that we are good stewards of the taxpayer money, showing, okay, we were able to make a savings out of this department to be able to fund that department. I think that's what you're looking for. Am I correct, Mr. Miller? With that, because we're showing it's coming out of employee services, but really, like you were saying, Dr. Rogers, we're going to be utilizing it from a savings maybe we had. Would that be,
Yeah,
would you be able to do that, or?
Well, and I'd want to talk to Mike later about it, but really our intent is really just to show internally that whenever you change a program and buy and go out for an RFP, it costs money. All right. Now, do I believe that it's ultimately going to increase the deficit? I'll speak non-CFO. The answer is no. All right. But we need internally for leadership team, for our departments to understand that there's not just a slush fund out there, that if you spend more money, we've got to find it, and we've got to fill out a budget amendment to do it. So I don't know if you want to add anything to it, or really that's not the purpose of tonight. And it might be that we just move on and we can have some more discussion. But
I think the next item is coming from my area of responsibility. So jumping to the next item is the Armored Courier Service. And if I'm gonna bring forward a recommendation to the board that we spend an additional, and I'm sorry to correct the superintendent in a public meeting, but it's $60,000
okay.
additional dollars, and it's $37 for the applicant tracking system. So if I'm going to bring forward a recommendation to spend an additional $60,000 for an armored courier service that we really have to have, but I didn't plan for that in my department budget, I want to be transparent with the board and say, yes, I'm recommending this, but there is a cost associated with that. And we need to make this decision immediately on the 21st because it's time sensitive. And so
And that was not known. That was not known.
That was not known when we developed the
That's a new
So
situation.
will there be an opportunity later in the year to evaluate some savings and not have that actually increase the deficit? But I think it's important to note we are a political subdivision of the state of Texas. We are not a business entity. And the thing that functions differently about our budget from a for-profit business entity is that the budget serves not only as our limit to expenditures, it also serves as our authority, our legal authority to spend money. And so it's really an attempt to be transparent and to show the board that if we have the authority to make a recommendation to the board to do something, we also have a plan to pay for it. And the plan involves that legal authority to spend that additional funds in that particular category that we didn't plan for in the budget.
But the semantics, I appreciate that, and I'm sorry, Ms. Ells, to jump in here, but what you're saying is our plan to pay for it is that we're going to amend a budget and draw from debt rather than look at an offset and expense. And so that's...
We are not drawing from debt in any form or fashion in the general fund.
Okay, well then, I think
debt.
that's great, because that's my point. Where is the money coming from? See, you guys, when we get a budget and we see 199 and we see these macro categories, we don't see journal entries and all the other things that you guys see at a level of detail. So I know you're tracking it. It may not be reflected in a level of detail that we see, but it is at a macro level. So if you're saying that it's coming from something that's already budgeted, that's what I just heard, then why don't we just talk about what that is?
Well, I think you talked about drawing from debt, which is,
Well,
And-
if it's not.
it's
in the
not
budget-
budgeted, which is why we're asking for a budget amendment. It's not drawing from debt, which is a whole different category of funding.
If you're in
So-
debt, then you're going to spend money that wasn't there. If you're planning to overspend,
Saying
then you're then
it's
spending
increasing
money.
the deficit on paper.
That's
Is what it's
correct.
doing.
That's correct.
So, Ms. Miller, I think what you need to say instead of drawing on debt is that it is increasing the deficit on the report, which
Fine.
is not real money.
That's
It's the
correct.
best way I can
I
put
think
that.
that's a good way to
It's
put
not,
it.
it's
You
not
haven't
to us, but
spent
it
it
is to
all.
people who read it on the website.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that words matter.
That's a
and-
fair
and-
assessment.
Yeah, words matter, and so we're not drawing on debt.
And I think we all get your heart and your comments, Mr. Miller. We are all, I spoke to one of our high school students today, and she said, how would you describe your board? And I said, we all look at our finances of the district, and that's what she was asking about, as not our own. And it's not that we take the responsibility beyond, we take it as stewards. And to be stewards, we hold ourselves to the utmost accountable. And so I think that we all agree that that's where you're coming from. But I agree with Ms. Prosnick. It is a matter of semantics and wording, and I don't believe that at all that we're going to be, like Dr. Rogers said, be increasing that debt. That debt.
But on
to-
paper.
On
Deficit.
paper, on paper.
Deficit.
On paper.
Right. But yet on paper.
Now, the CFO won't tell you.
Right. And I do appreciate this being, and even the other one being brought to us at the $37,000 level, because the one thing that I know when I was first on the board was some of these things, or even when I was sitting in what Ms. Prosnick refers to as the cheap seats out here, things would change, and I never knew why they had changed or how they were changed or why they were changed. And so I appreciate the transparency. I appreciate the ability to be able to track something that we have talked about, even though it's not, it wasn't something that was really brought by you. We want to track what applicants are we getting? Why are we having these gaps and being able to hire? And so I think that anything that we can do, although it looks like it costs, I think we gain on paper in the long run, if that.
And Ms. Sells, I'd ask that we just move on, but I
Yes.
will say this. I think the way Ms. Prosnick put it is a great way. There's no doubt, and Mr. Ball, you correct me if I'm wrong, and it's okay if you
Not
correct
twice,
me.
in the same meeting, please.
There's no doubt that what we're saying is we're going to spend $97,000 more than we had earlier projected. Now, what he won't say, but I will, is we're still going to come under what our deficit is on paper, okay? So you adopted a deficit budget of 14-point-something million. I promise you, we will not get close to that deficit, but we're going to spend $97,000 more than what we would have without adopting these two things. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
it makes
So,
sense.
all right.
Okay, so Armored Courier,
Oh,
you
no,
want to go
I
into
haven't-
that?
We all have more
We,
questions.
Yeah.
we haven't gone around for
Yeah.
questions.
Oh, that's right.
You're up.
I like this. I think it'll be good for, even as a face, for the districts that maybe some of the, our future employees. I see under here in advanced features. This is not critical, but just curious. I know that a lot of times you do some online interviewing ahead of time. Does this encompass this, or do you still have to use like a separate program?
The program we use interfaces, integrates with the proposed primary. So it is not, it's a standalone, it remains a standalone.
Okay. And the other thing, I did want to say that I do recall this being brought up at some point. I don't know which meeting it was, but I
The
do
board
recall
retreat.
Yes.
you talking about that it was going to be needed in the future. So just a little comment there, but that's it.
Ms. Prosnick?
Yeah, that was my question. This is what you brought up on August 16th at our board
Yes,
retreat,
ma'am.
correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So did we just, because we had not approved the budget at that point, did we just miss it by I mean, was it just a missed guess of how much it was going to
No,
be?
that's a great point, Ms. Prosnick. You know, because of the publication deadlines, even though at that point in time, we may know we're planning on doing something, we can't change the budget that we're proposing for the board because we've already published it. And so we just say, we'll amend it later, and so that's where we are. That's where we'll be on the 21st, is asking the board to approve those amendments.
And so, I'm fine, I mean, I was fine with this on August 16th. My question is going to be moving forward. I appreciate the idea behind it. I also understand Mr. Miller's point.
Sure.
That, are we going to be looking at 4 or 5 budget amendments every meeting? Because at some point, no matter how good the idea is, I'm going to go, you know, we plan, we say a budget, and at some point the answer has to be no. I'm not saying what it is specifically, but I mean, if we're going to do $200,000 a meeting, I mean, we do 9 meetings. That's 1.8 million.
I got you.
So that's kind of where I don't want to start down that trail.
Yeah, I don't either. And this, as I said,
And I
is
think these are,
a little new territory for us too. We're doing as much, as I said, for our side of the house. You know, give you an example, and Mr. Miller's right. For instance, in my budget, out of my budget is what we paid for the needs assessment. All right, which was 30, ended up being, I think, was it 30? 36, 37. So we won't bring that forward. All right, so we're just trying to start to create a system to try to be a little more transparent and to help us keep track of, okay, you asked for this new program, hey, it cost us this much more. I mean, so that's our purpose, and so we'll work through the.
And I understand this is the new territory
Yeah.
and so forth, and I appreciate the idea behind it. I guess I don't want it to become the crutch.
We don't want it to be cumbersome.
Yeah, and I
at
don't want it to
all.
become the crutch of,
Absolutely.
we'll just go to the board and ask for $60,000 because we
No.
think this is a great program. That is my, I don't want to start going down that road.
No, that makes total sense, Ms. Brogdon.
Ms. Cox?
Okay, so I have 2 questions and then a comment, Ms. Sills. So first question is, will this help, I think I know the answer, but just in case, Dr. Bonner, will this increase the outreach for the people that we're able to, you know?
Yes, ma'am. A couple of thoughts spring to mind. One, the hub that is available to applicants, just currently in the primary vendor has about 40 or 45,000 applicants in that hub, larger than our legacy system. The other thing that I'm really excited about in this is this has social media opportunities at the push of a button that we simply do not have right now. So those 2 things should enhance our ability to recruit and be out there better.
Yeah, i.e. LinkedIn.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
i.e. LinkedIn.
Yes, LinkedIn. LISD on LinkedIn would be awesome. Okay, and then also, will this change the process steps? So I think there's a lot of steps right now to apply in the district. Will this help shorten that process, or?
Yes, ma'am. That's one of the things that we'll be looking at during implementation. This is a new software, so to speak, and so during the implementation, you would absolutely look at your process steps with the vendor and determine what the best practice is and the best process. And there will be, I feel certain there will be changes. We've not gotten into that yet. That's subsequent to this meeting and the October 21 meeting if approved. But assuming approval, then that would be something that we'd work with the vendor on. Yes, ma'am.
And then, Ms. Sells, this isn't to get with the district on, you know, micromanaging or anything, but I asked for this at one of the meetings, so I really would like to see this at a workshop, just for me to understand, and I think the board would appreciate it too, the process of how the teachers are selected to serve on that committee, how the pool is drawn to draw our principals, our APs. I would just like to know how that process works, that vetting process. So if we could put that on a workshop, I would greatly appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay. Is that it, Ms. Cox?
Yes.
Ms. Timish?
I started.
No, you did.
I know, it's an hour and a half ago.
Yeah. Shoot.
Did anything? Okay, I'm totally messed up on my numbers over here, so we're going to just go on. So, I think the only thing for me was the marketing. Do do they do any marketing, or it's all up to us?
Any marketing or any
Or
publicity
just
of
for
the district
apply.
opportunities would be up to us. Yeah, they're just a service provider or a system
And
provider.
once we put it out there, then once they click on, then the other districts become available. You know, in an ideal world, we'd be the only one that shows for our
Right.
people, but we
Right.
show for everybody else.
Yeah, we'd
But
prefer
I
to
know
have,
that's probably not the way they sell it.
we'd prefer to have those 40,000 all to ourselves,
Yeah.
but the applicants are applying to this hub, which we then have access to, just like our system now,
Okay.
but it's actually about another 80% larger than the system we have now. More member districts.
And those 300 districts, are they kind of centralized in one area of Texas, or do we have a whole, is it,
It's understood.
I'll need
is
to
it
get,
other states? I mean,
those are 300 Texas districts.
300 Texas
Yes, for the
districts.
primary vendor, and I would need to get you a more complete listing than what's available up here.
Okay, yeah, because I think that, for me, people applying to maybe one district, you know.
There's a lot of North Texas districts.
Yeah,
that
and
use
that's
this
what I
system.
was,
Yeah.
that's what I was wanting to
Yeah.
know, is that, are we represented in North Texas, and are we going to draw from a large pool of people in this area?
I would say yes, and I'd like to get a more concrete list so you can see exactly who we're talking about.
And I do agree with Ms. Cox's comment on LinkedIn. I
Mhm.
think that that's building momentum, and there's a lot going on right there. I see friends that are recruiters using LinkedIn more so nowadays
Absolutely.
than ever before. And so, and for us, I think that if we're not as trustees on LinkedIn to share, I think that we ought to be, so,
Dr.
Provide us
Bonner and I
some
attended a class.
yes.
That's right. It'll provide some exciting opportunities on social media, LinkedIn, and other platforms.
Perfect. Okay, love that. Okay, that's all I had. Anybody else have any closing thoughts or comments? No? Okay, Mr. Ball?
Thank you. We're ready to talk about armored
Now,
cars.
We are. I'm
now
ready.
I'm cars.
I'm ready.
I'm eagerly anticipating
You look
the
eager.
discussion. The district has, since really about 2015, has used what's called an armored courier service. I'm sorry, an armed courier service. And our depository bank notified us in July that their main vault in the downtown Dallas area will no longer accept transports into their facility from other than an armored car. And so I wouldn't think it'd be appropriate in an open session to really go into a lot of detail, and we'd be happy to go into as much detail as the board would like on the 21st if the board wants that information in a closed session. But I think you can visualize what an armored car looks like, and the service we're currently using. The officers are armed, but they're not utilizing what you would envision as an armored car. And so therefore, and they have no intentions of acquiring such a vehicle. In fact, they have also notified us that they don't want to service us anymore for that reason as of the end of this calendar year. And so with that information, we did issue a request for proposals for the armored car service. We've gotten those responses, and we've evaluated them, and pardon me, the one that we believe will give the best value to the district, we're recommending that on the 24th, the 21st, I'm sorry. That bid tabulation is on board book for the board's review. And I think once the trustees look at that, it'll be obvious that the one that we will be recommending does provide the best value to the district. And this is a time-sensitive thing because we do need to make a change so that we can continue to provide secure transport of district funds around the district and then all the way to the bank's depository facility. And what we've learned in this process, because I've had some pretty intense discussions with our bank about gee, how you do this to us with such short notice? And the answer I've gotten is all of the big international banks are having the same requirement. And so it's not just our bank. I think it's just the banking industry and the standards that they have to enter their vault facility. And you can imagine what the volume of transactions that these large international bank facilities are handling in a place like downtown Dallas. And so they have to have very strict requirements on those vehicles and personnel that enter their facilities. And I'm told that all of the large banks are going in this direction. So this is something we believe we have to do. And as we've discussed already, this is an additional cost of about $60,000. And certainly it'll be our recommendation on the 21st that the board approve the recommended vendor at that time and the associated budget amendment. And with that, Ms. Hells, I'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Do we have any questions, Mr. Miller? Ms. Hassan? Ms. Crosby?
Can I assume that they've given us a grace period?
We're already in the grace period.
I'm assuming that they've given us
The grace period began on September 1st, and
Okay.
so they have been allowing us to, they're not allowing us to transport to their facility, but they are allowing us to go to one of their branch banks, and they're going to cease that because we're in the grace period for that now.
Okay.
And we were able to negotiate that with them.
All right. Thank you.
Ms. Cox? Anything? Ms. Timish? Okay, thank you, Mr. Ball. I don't have anything else. Okay.
Okay, GMPs.
Okay, and as Mr. Fight makes his way, I hope he's still in there he is. It scared me there for a minute. This is the guaranteed maximum price for Central Elementary School's 20-year refresh, and we actually have some pictures for you, and we'll probably just go through these pictures. I'm not sure they're in the same order as the agenda items, but I guess they are. So we'll look at the pictures of what the proposal is to do at Central, and then we do have the guaranteed maximum price on this project, which is $7,033,500 from core construction. And so Mr. Fight will give the board a little update on what the actual work involves and the scope that's with this project. And we do have, just to refresh the board on the process here, which is one of the items on tonight's agenda. Each of these construction contractors were selected through a competitive process. Then once we recommend to the board the assignment of the projects to the construction manager firms, then they work with our design professionals to develop the scope of the project, and then they actually competitively bid the subs that will do the work, and then they sum that up and give that to us as their guaranteed maximum price. And that's what we're presenting to the board both tonight and then on the 21st as an action item. And so that's kind of the process, and the amount is $7,033,500. And I'll let Mr. Fight give you the details on the scope of the project.
And Board, I'd ask Randy, I felt like it was fair for y'all, certainly fair for y'all to sort of see what we're talking about when we're talking about the renovation of part of, and at least have an idea.
Absolutely. So if you look at this slide, I just want to kind of point out the phase one, the red box there. That was the work that was done this summer. And so if you recall, we brought phase one to the board. That GMP was approved. Both phase one and phase two together are the overall budget. We are within the overall budget. And phase two essentially is everything from Purnell, with the exception of teams, moving over to this portion of Central. So as you look at let's see if I can get this to work. So we have the niche here. This is the focus on the future. This is would be the Starfish Cafe, Starfish Kitchen. This would be a catering kitchen. And then all the rest of this would be the administrative offices for special ed. And then this is the old gymnasium at Central, and that would be used for kind of a professional meeting space, professional development meeting space. So that's basically what this portion of the building is for, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Could you go back
Sure.
one slide? Okay, so
So,
show us, so is this more,
Where do you go into the building?
Yes,
Can you just point
thank
where you
you.
go into the
yeah,
building?
where do you go into?
okay, so
Show 'em
right,
the main
so right now, if you were to go into what would be, basically half of Mill Street Elementary today, you'd be going through this door. This side of the building here is the 2004 edition of Central Elementary, and so
So
your main entrance
yeah,
for that would be right here.
Oh,
That's
that's
where we
what I
go.
want.
Then that's
Okay,
where
that's
we
what I
go.
want to see. Okay, got it.
So this is renovating the older section, the original section of Central Elementary.
Okay, gotcha.
And so this, obviously, this is not in scope. That would be a 20 refresh would theoretically be in the next fall.
So it is.
It's there, but it's not.
Right. Any other questions?
What's the catering kitchen used for?
What, our meals?
Our meals,
All the
okay.
meals that they cater
just-
across the district?
And
So-
I probably should have gone down
Yeah.
the line.
No, it's okay.
that's-
So they actually right now prepare meals at Purnell, and so that kitchen
Yeah.
would be going away. So this gives them a space to carry on that work.
This is on you.
So this will begin when? The construction?
Basically, after approval by the board, we would look to begin construction and,
Oh, okay.
and wrap up next summer.
And how will this affect current students and staff that's there?
So they would continue in the Central Elementary portion. There really should be no disruption to those students.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just can't picture
Absolutely.
where this is, so
Sure.
I haven't walked that.
So we will go in and we'll wall off, sections, this section of the building so that students in Central Elementary will not be able to go into the construction site.
Okay.
And we'll be able to actually work during the school year, which will be nice to
Why don't you
change.
point to where the PD place
Oh, yes, I'm
clinic
sorry.
is? just
Sorry
to-
about that.
To
So
give
this
them a little
gray,
more reference.
and so this gray section
there.
right here
Mhm.
is PD Place.
And that parking lot is right there to the
Yes,
left of
the
that.
Yes.
west
Does
of
that help
it.
you?
It does. I guess I wasn't aware of what was currently going on in the space, what the space was currently being used for is all. So,
Well, right now, there's Mill Street students in
Right.
that section.
got it.
Right.
Got it now.
We had hoped
Okay.
they were.
Right.
And so PD Place will be getting a little lift up too, right?
Some minor work, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really all. Just need some perspective.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely.
So, is there any design to put teams there? Because I know we have to decide about where we're going to put teams.
Yeah.
Because we haven't made a decision about what's going to happen to College Street. And so I'm asking if there's flexibility in that.
Yeah, I don't think, when we plan this space, that's a great question. I don't think Ms. Prosnick and Randy and Dr. Rapp and all of them were involved in this space. I think the space is still pretty tight just for the staff that we want to house there. And we also wanted to make sure that we did some of these areas, like focus on the future, and Starfish Cafe right, because they've for a long time not had a great space. So there's probably no doubt that we're going to have to use College Street for pre-K, and we'll get into that
Right,
later.
and I know that that's,
But-
and I'm not trying to put the cart before
No,
the
I know,
horse.
but it does.
I'm trying to,
It does affect the
plan.
dominoes, there's
Yeah.
no doubt, and so we've begun to have that discussion, and we'll report out to y'all soon about that. But I wish that was not the case, but when you look at the potential pre-K numbers, particularly in the LHS feeder, I just don't see any way that we won't need College Street for pre-K, and there's no other place for it to be. I mean,
so we don't, at this point, have a place for teams?
Well, that starts that domino effect, and so certainly, we will begin investigation of possibly putting teams in DAP at Del Jackson, renovated Del Jackson. So those are the pieces that we've got to sort of flesh out.
And I realize it's a
Yeah,
it's a
no,
long
it's a good
domino,
question.
But I was just
I
wondering.
promise you, we've been
if there was
thinking
any
about it.
flexibility in the design.
Yeah,
So
no.
I'm not trying to
No.
make people double up on offices, I promise.
No, it's,
Multi-level workstation.
Multi-level working stations, high
Climb the
low,
little stairs up there.
high low. Those are all the questions that I have.
Okay, Ms. Cox?
So this is going to be my question for actually all three of the items. So as we've moved through some of these projects, we've had contingencies that have, oh, guess what? Now we have a water issue, or we have a issue on the side of the building. What are we doing to allow for some of these contingencies? Because we don't know some of the issues or problems, maybe a school built previously by a different contractor or something. So what allowances are we giving for that?
Correct. So all of our projects do have a contingency included in the GMP. It just so happens DeGan, and we'll talk about that later, didn't have enough in the contingency to cover the issues we found there. We don't feel there's a lot more exterior CMU walls in Central. We don't feel like we're going to have the major issues. We've already taken into account any abatement that we're going to run into there, and it's certainly not as extensive as it was at DeGan. So we feel like we've got an adequate amount in the GMP to cover some unforeseen.
Okay, and my second question is, what separation do we have to separate Central Elementary from the other buildings? So is there a separation so they're kind of like two buildings, or how does that happen?
Are we still going to have the glass doors?
Yeah, and I apologize, I don't have a more of a.
Because right now, I mean, you can
There-
walk in both buildings
yeah,
freely.
no, there
and-
will be a
we-
separation.
We do have doors. I'm not able to really kind of show it well on this drawing here, but there will be doors that separate the two, and obviously you'll be able to have egress out of the building for emergencies and whatnot. But the idea is to have separation from central students and from special ed.
Right, so there will be no access
Correct.
intertwined.
Right.
Okay.
Ms. Timish?
Okay, so for my question, because we don't know what pre-K is going to look like and we don't have an answer, I feel like we're kind of moving forward and creating a narrative that we're not going to be able to pull back from. So if we approve this, basically we're approving the fact that Teams really isn't going to be able to be on this campus, correct? And I mean, I'm hesitant because I really want to make sure that we're making decisions that are then eliminating this campus for, are we sure that Del Jackson can fit DAP and Teams? Is that the best answer? Because I kind of feel like I want that answer first before I start checking off all these other answers. Because I think Teams is a pretty darn special program, and we know DAP. I don't want them to be an afterthought.
Yeah, and that's a great question, Ms. Timish. I can promise you that Del Jackson, I think, is as big, if not bigger, than College Street. And we had the space plan at College Street, so there's no doubt that we want to do right by teams, and it's a specialized area, and we have not started looking at as far as, but we feel comfortable. So I get your point that you're not for sure about this, but this is, if we're ever to finally remove Purnell, we've got to get this done. I mean, this part has to be done as far as the next domino to fall, and because we can't remove Purnell until we find a place for both teams and all these people to have an office.
Okay, so I understand it. So College Street's going to most likely be pre-K, and then this is going to be, we're focused on the future and our Starfish Cafe.
And all the.
So basically, we're looking at three dominoes all in a row.
That's absolutely
so tonight, we're really making the decision that Teams and DAP is going to go to Del Jackson. I mean, I just don't see how there's any other options.
Well, and we haven't brought to you, that final thing, but this is the first domino to fall, and certainly the board can decide, hey, we don't need College Street for pre-K. We think we're probably going to, and that's where we're leaning, but we haven't finalized that to bring to you. And then the third domino is then what to do with Dell Jackson Career Center, which we had never landed on what to do with Dell Jackson. So now we have a pretty good understanding, and we've got to get in there
And I understand Purnell, we need to get
Yeah.
moving to remove Purnell, but I guess, for me, in my mind, I just want to make sure that we're being very thoughtful with all three of these campuses, because really, in my mind, we're really tying our hands. Once we approve this, we know, and I feel like College Street will have to go to pre-K, then I just really want to make sure that Teams DAP at Del Jackson works.
Yeah, and ultimately the teams thing we certainly have to find a place for, because they're being moved out of Purnell.
Right.
DAP is really programmatically a good move to put with teams, but that's not a requirement. It's not like we were hoping to create some more space in the Learning Center for other programs there, and so it made sense administratively and so on to run the teams program with DAP. It's not required. We could leave DAP where it's at, and be fine. But we just believe it's a good match.
And when will we get a timeline on when Teams could potentially move into DAP? Because I think there's some other benefits moving into that campus, but it would have to be refurbished. So have we even started talking about a timeline for that?
Well, I mean, they have to finish out this school year and then move to the new career. Dell Jackson has to finish out this school year and then move to the new career center, and then obviously we could start a renovation. So we feel like we have plenty of time to start a design process for that now.
And just remember, all these timelines were pushed back by 9 or 10 weeks because of Mill Street. Because we would have already been started on these dominoes earlier, but we needed the kids to stay where they were at. So we understand. I mean, I promise you, we've been talking timelines, and when we've got it nailed down, I promise you, we're going to
No,
bring
I
it
get
to
it.
you.
I just want to make sure that with one decision, that makes really the third, we're making a decision for that third domino. So I just want to really, I guess we don't have a crystal ball, but I still want to make sure we're just not going to come back and say, we're so sad, we wish we had thought about these things.
I can tell you, as far as this piece and the central piece, I mean, nothing's really changed. We knew all along that all the programs just simply wouldn't fit. There's just not enough space. And what was kind of neat about using this portion of the building for these programs is we had that extra gym, that extra cafeteria, that Central had 2 cafeterias, and so it allowed us to fit these kinds of programs in there, and really was a pretty good fit. So.
Mr. Miller?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about some of the same things, but to maintain fidelity to the agenda item, I'm going to do so because, as Ms. Timish pointed out, agreeing to this eliminates some other options, so I'm going to connect that to the agenda. The Learning Center today, where DAP is housed, would you all agree that has a more restricted entry?
The DAP section, and absolutely, it has a very restricted entry.
So when I hear DAP combined with Teams, knowing that DAP has a restricted entry, it makes me nervous.
Well, Teams has a restricted entry too.
Same thing?
Yeah.
So as it relates to timeline then, we have plenty of time. We would actually need to be, once we evacuate, get out of those buildings, start working on them probably as soon as possible next August, September. So from a timeline perspective, we've got the design, select construction manager at risk, agree to that procurement method, come up with a GMP, and begin so that, to me, says that we need to be making some decisions here on the design, the location and the design pretty quickly.
That's absolutely right.
So what would that timeline be for us to see some initial recommendations from staff?
Well, first off, we're going to have to officially announce to y'all and bring to y'all the discussion about College Street. And once that, because it's not a necessity. I mean, we could not do College Street. I just don't think it's the right decision. I think y'all will agree with that. But then, in the meantime, we've got to get Randy with architects and be looking at Del Jackson, to make sure. And of course, then that's going to drive the plans and the GMP and all that. So you're absolutely right that we want to start that as soon as possible. And I'd say in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Mr. Mills, anything else? Okay, Randy, you talked about the separation. Where will the Starfish, the Focus on the Future Kids enter? Will that entry be where that little courtyard and tree is? Will that be reopened? And how will that be secured? Will there be staff there?
So, so this is an entrance here.
Right.
But also kind of the main entrance that we're trying to use for special ed is really down here. And this is our security vestibule entrance down here. So this is our main office.
There's an office there.
Now, we've had discussions with Matt Garrett about, access to the niche, because a lot of folks come to the niche and they have badges and things, and maybe there's just access to only that room. But right now, the intent is that everybody uses this entrance.
And what will the entrance be like for Starfish Cafe? Will there be a direct entrance into Starfish Cafe?
The idea again is that everybody is going through this main check.
That's
So like
what
now, you go through Cornell and then you're
Correct,
escorted
right.
Yeah,
on
that'll be
to-
like their school's entrance
Okay.
with their office and so on.
Perfect.
And then the division over here, that will be by swipe card, and because Central Elementary people wouldn't have any business over here.
Correct.
And these people would, how are we going, but yet there's I would think that the administrators of both of those, or
Yeah.
directors, would
We
need
can
some
control
kind of-
that.
Okay. I
Right.
just want to, because I know that some of our focus on the future kids like to wander. And, just to make it as secure and.
Yeah, they won't be able to wander that direction.
Okay, that's it. Yeah, okay. Just wanted to know that. And will they lose their little coffee shop, or will that be included in that entry?
I'll have to check on that.
I don't know that we've talked about a coffee shop.
Yeah.
What's where they have the coffee and
Yeah,
the
no, I
little
know,
snacks?
yeah, I'm just
And
saying.
that's just very well used.
Okay.
Yes.
But their area that they're gaining is about
Yeah.
This,
2 or 3 times bigger, so
yes.
they may
Yeah.
have to move the coffee shop, but I promise you there's room for them.
Right.
Maybe a coffee cart or. It doesn't take up much space in that entry where it's at now, but it is
Look at all
nice to
these
stop
customers
somewhere.
they're gonna
And I
have.
noticed that they're now using it for pickup for some of the things that they're doing. So I would hate for them to lose that, because some of the special orders that they're doing, now they can notify you and you can pick it up there without having to enter into the niche. And I think that's just another level of security that we can have if we can provide that some way for them. The other is, how much staff are we moving there? Does anybody?
I can follow up on those counts. I don't have them right off the top of my head, but it's,
There's a bunch.
Yeah, there is.
you've got all program interventionists, support staff,
And
we
they're
call
all
it
at
center.
Cornell now? They're
Mhm.
the ones that
Oh,
are
yeah.
down that one hallway?
They have
Well,
home
they're all
bases
over.
in
Yeah,
Cornell.
at home base, okay. And then, the niche is not losing space, right? It's gaining.
I don't know if it's gaining.
Is it staying the same?
It's pretty much
the same.
equal to what they have now, yes.
What they have now. Okay. And then, how much space is all there compared to College Street? Where are we at comparison,
For this entire piece here, I'll have to get that answer for you as well.
just wondering.
He'll get the exact square footage, but I can promise you that space is bigger than
Yes.
College Street.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, and I'm just thinking of that domino effect too, that College Street meets the needs of where we anticipate our pre-K to be more than this, and this meets the needs of this more than college, because I know that was a concern when there was a discussion of them moving to college at one point, and there wasn't space, and that was a very,
That's correct.
very strong concern from those that lead that program, and so, okay. That's just what I wanted to know, and I think that was all my questions. Anybody else have any follow-up? Okay. Okay.
He's still up.
Yep, you're still up, moving on.
Okay, the next item is step 2 of the construction manager risk process, and which is selection of the construction manager firms for the year 3 bond projects that the board has already approved. And those are listed. I won't waste your time reading all of those, but those are all listed there in the item on tonight's write-up. And what we've done, the step 2 of this process involves actually seeking competitive proposals from at least 3, but no more than 5 of the firms that the board has already approved as construction firms qualified to do business in the district. So we've done that, and the tabulation of those responses is in the board book for the board's consideration on the 21st. And so what we've tried to do is do 2 things. One is obviously to make cost one of the primary, if not the primary consideration. Also, the workload and the capacity, if you will, for the various firms. And we also are trying to spread the work around so that we don't overload one particular firm, or we want to try to assign a project to a firm if possible, because we want them to continue to want to propose on our projects, because we have, as you know, we have a couple of years remaining in our 2017 bond project. So that's kind of what's going on here. And in the 21st board book information, the board has the tabulation. We've shaded the construction company that's being recommended for each particular project. And so that's what's before us tonight, really, as a discussion item. And we'll be asking the board to take action on that on the 21st. And certainly Mr. Fide or Mr. Martin or myself would be happy to address any questions the board might have on all of this.
Okay, we'll begin with Ms. Crosby.
I've got quite a few. I promise they're quick and simple, though. At Bridlewood, are we including a sunshade with that playground?
It was not originally included in the bond. We know the ongoing discussions, and so we're going to try to do what we can.
Okay, and on Heritage, and it could just very well be a typo kind of a thing, it is not in the facilities 2019 facilities assessment.
Okay.
You know,
The fire alarm?
my Bible.
Okay.
For the district. The fire alarm is not listed as being part of the 2017 bond.
Okay.
So that could either just be a typo, but if it wasn't, why? Why? I guess my question is, why wasn't it done at the same time we did the bathrooms?
Right. It was shown. I'll have to go back to some previous versions, but they may have just shown it as already done, knowing that it was coming up. I'll have to check on that. But it certainly was noted in the assessment to be an item that we included in the bond.
And then the generator for Prairie Trail, is that something we're doing now? I noticed on a lot of these that it's just listed. There's no time thing, but is that now a requirement?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. For our life safety systems, we're adding generators to any campus that doesn't have one, and now we're tracking it in the assessment.
See, I read these
Right?
things.
Right?
You don't just make these for like my desk. And at Huffines Middle School on the track, are we going to fix those drainage issues so we're not? I mean, is that going to fix the drainage issues?
Certainly our goal to improve any issues that are there while we're there.
Okay.
Right.
And then, on the distribution center, are the HVAC controls and the sidewalks, are those included in the thing? Because they're not highlighted, once again, with the 2017
Right.
bond.
If you look at the budget for it's interesting. It's a very small budget, and so
Yeah.
really the bulk of that project is mainly code upgrades to that
Okay.
building. So that's what really our primary focus there.
And then, Dr. Coburn, I actually have a question for you.
All right.
So, with the addition of the fine arts at DeLay and Huffines, I'm assuming that those orchestra programs will be staying intact.
Yeah, you guys are going to be getting an email about orchestra as soon as this meeting is over. So probably before you go to bed tonight, will be an email
I guess this was just something that I noticed at Hebron and at the Colony, that the two construction firms had significantly lower estimates were those that are already on site. I wondered if that had anything to do with it.
One of them, yes. The other, no. So
Okay.
Hebron High School, yes.
Okay.
That's a company that's out there now. So general conditions obviously are a little lower.
Okay.
The Colony, that firm is not out there currently.
Okay, I thought they were doing the entrance.
That's core construction actually doing the entrance right now. However, if you kind of look across, the tabulations, you'll kind of see a theme on pricing by some of the contractors, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and we didn't go with the lowest contractor because we were trying to spread the wealth.
It depends on which one. So there's 3 that we didn't go with the
Yeah,
low.
Forest Vista, the Lizdak.
Forest Vista was that workload issue that Mr. Ball spoke of. The high school, Flower Mound High School actually, workload issue. And then the Lizdak was actually, as Mr. Ball mentioned, it's a great company that we'd like to keep in our pool. They're doing the Career Center for us now. And so we felt like it was a good match, a good project for them as well, that they can be successful.
Okay. That's all I got. Believe it or not, that's all I got.
All right, great.
Thank you, Ms. President. Ms. Cox?
How confident do we, I like how you spread it around, by the way. I think
Okay.
that's great, but how confident do we feel they'll meet their deadlines, having this kind of workload? We're not the only district they're building for.
Exactly.
So-
We still feel confident. We do. We still feel confident. We have confidence in these teams that we also, another thing that we looked at with these is we had them submit their actual teams that they would put on the project. So that was one thing we looked at and scrutinized and really looked at, hey, they're already on this project we know over here. We know they can't do this project over here, and so we're having those discussions. But yeah, we do feel confident in the workload, the way we divided it up. If we had gone low bid on all these, I wouldn't feel as comfortable with the workloads.
Ms. Timish?
I have a question when it comes to specifically our high school campuses. How is that communicated to like the different organizations and groups and teachers and staff? Because I've noticed some are like requesting grants for things that I know are coming in the refresh. So I'm just wondering how that is
Interesting.
communicated.
Okay, so our primary communication has been with the principal and assistant principals, and we have meetings. Actually, we have one tomorrow, and so I can bring this question up to them tomorrow on how do we make sure that if you have groups within your building that are looking to purchase things, that we're not double dipping. We're not already providing that with the refresh. So I will bring that up tomorrow.
Right, because I think because it doesn't have to go through the principal to write it, ask for a grant or scholarship.
Gotcha.
And some are even just going out to outside companies. And my question has been, I think that's going to be something done in the refresh. I want to make sure we're not asking money from our community members and then turning
Absolutely.
around and redoing it a year later.
That's a great point. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller?
So I'm going to speak to the selection, and I would just say, to the extent that Mr. Cronover, you think this needs to move to executive session, I'm glad to. But I'm trying to understand. We made our selection based on financial parameters and making sure that we would continue to secure the interest of construction managers on an ongoing basis. Correct? Those are,
Well,
and the quality of the provider.
quality of the provider, the history of the services that they provided up to this point so far, the workload that they currently have on their plate, the teams that they submitted. We also asked them to give a brief narrative on how they would approach the project. So we take all those things into consideration.
Okay. I think what would be helpful, since I was schooled on making sure that I look at the pre-board book ahead of time, in the bid we had for the rubric that we had on for HR, there was a good level of detail provided on the reason for the selection. What I'm struggling with here is that the criteria we used, out of 8 bidders, 2 bidders both got 3 projects. 1 bidder got 0, and yet was less expensive than the provider that got it. The provider that got it bid on only 2 projects and got 1. So and then one bid on every project and got 0. So if there's something we need to understand as it relates to the list of qualified CMRs that we have, not being a list that we believe we should select from, given one of them was lower than someone we selected, I think that's something we need to have some more discussion about on a forward-going basis.
And Mr. Miller, I would just suggest maybe that Mr. Fike call you personally, and maybe y'all can have that discussion offline. Unless the board wants to get more details, and then I think probably if we're talking about bids and things, we probably would need to go to closed session. I don't want to speak for our general counsel, but.
I'm not asking for detail on the bids. I'm certainly open to Mr. Fike calling me, but I am trying to understand.
You want to understand the process.
Yeah,
Sure.
because,
Sure.
we were very particular about the selection. Yet we have some that come out with no work, yet they were lower in some cases. Just trying to understand how that all fits together. And, others got a pretty substantial amount of work.
Right.
I think part of that, Mr. Miller, is that, the requested costs were on a project-by-project basis, and I think Ms. Prosnick already was very perceptive and pointed out those that I think there were 2 occasions, if memory serves me correctly, that we, only 2 occasions where we did not, are not recommending the low proposal. One of those is the phase 2 of the expansion of this facility, and I think it's already been stated that one of the primary reason for that is to keep a builder that by all accounts I think is one of the best we have in our arsenal, if you will, interested in continuing to do business with the district as well as spreading the workload. And I think the other case where the only other case where we're not recommending the low proposal had to do with spreading the workload. And so I think the process that we've had is one that has integrity. We have followed the law in requesting the proposals from the companies. We've had more than 3, but no more than 5, and we did have to exclude one of the 6 that is a qualified firm, and we made that exclusion also based on workload considerations. And so I think the process has had integrity. It is, and in every procurement recommendation that we make, we make the recommendation based on best value to the district, not necessarily the lowest price, because there are often situations where the price isn't necessarily the best indicator of what the value is to the district. And we believe in these two cases where we're not recommending the lowest price, that there are other factors that lead to the best value being obtained by the one that's being recommended.
Fair enough. I'll just close with this. I want to be clear. I did not use the words legality or integrity, so that's not where I was headed. But there's a company on here that didn't seem very interested in us because they didn't bid on 5 or 6 of the projects, and they got business. So I'm just, back to, we want to keep them interested in us. There's a lot of companies that are not on this list that would be very interested in us. And so I just am uncomfortable giving somebody business that really expressed little interest in bidding on some material-sized projects.
And I think one of the things that makes that particular company the quality company that they are is they don't just throw bids out there and take anything that comes along. They are very interested, I would submit, in doing business with LISD, and they are doing a significant, in fact, I would say it might be the crown jewel project of our bond proposition. They are working on as we speak, and so I think they are very interested in maintaining a relationship with the district. they take great care in the proposals that they put out there that they do not overextend their own capacity. And I think that shouldn't be taken as a lack of interest in LISD. I view it actually as a positive because they are trying to ensure that they don't overextend themselves.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ball, and I think we can move on with that. Mr. Miller, if you have any additional, I'm going to ask that you just contact.
Well, we'll have
Mr.
Mr. Fife
and
will reach
we'll
out.
have- yeah, if you
Absolutely.
would, please.
Good question.
Thank you, yeah, there. Okay, moving on.
Okay, DeGan.
Sorry, I'm struggling to get the, here we go. This item is, and I think Mr. Fight has some pictures about this that he'll show you, but I'll just get to the bottom line. The guaranteed maximum price on the project that's almost complete is $7.6 million. And what's on the table for the board to consider on the 21st is a change order to deal with some of the things that Mr. Fight will show you in the pictures. And that change order that'll be recommended on the 21st is $3,048,028. And that will take care of the remediation of what he's about to show you. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Fight.
Okay, so some of this is a rerun from our August 5th meeting. These pictures I brought at that time, and just wanted to kind of bring it up one more time just to show this was the overall scope of DeGan, and these were the two phases that were completed this summer. They're currently in phase 3, and so as we talk about this change order, really it's the exterior of the building from all these colored areas. So not the 1987 or 2001 portions of the building, because they did not have the same exterior conditions issues. So these were the uncovered issues. If you remember, we had the splice studs, the structural issues on the exterior walls, and we took care of some of that this summer with the lateral bracing that you saw and the new studs, and I got pictures of that. But what we didn't take care of yet was on the exterior. So the brick, if you remember, we didn't have adequate sheething, adequate through-wall flashing, really no good waterproofing membrane on the exterior of this building. And so these, again, were the pictures of the splices and what was really left after abatement was completed there, and how we really found all this. And then these were some pictures of the repairs that were done this summer, the new studs, and the bracing that went in there to make it a safe building for the students. So really what this change order includes is a lot of exterior work, new brick around the building, new sheathing, flashing, waterproofing, all those things I mentioned. But it also, we have the opportunity to add some windows to some classrooms that never had those. And we all know that natural light in a classroom is a very important element. And also included in this change order, a little bit of money for some sewer line assessment and repair. Things that we didn't know were issues before the project started are now surfacing as we work on the building. So we want to put a little bit of money in here to go in there and address that. And then there's also a little bit of money for some security elements from, this is one of, I believe, 2 campuses in the district that have a detached gymnasium. And so how do students go back and forth between those and still, we have a secure environment there. So that is also included in here. So just a couple of slides, a real quick elevation study, because what we don't want to do is make it look exactly the same as it is now, right? We want to upgrade it a little bit. So unfortunately, we can't get rid of all the plaster at the top. The structural members do protrude out past the face of the building, but we have greatly minimized this. And I wish there was we've taken quite a bit off the top, that real heavy textured top of the building. We also have some metal panels kind of shown at the front entrance to define that entrance better, make it look better. Breaking up the colors a little bit. And then, as I mentioned, kind of providing some windows in these classrooms. When you drive up to DeGan right now, that entire, where the lettering is, there's no windows on that entire facade there. Those are classrooms. And so we're really able to really improve this building through this change order. So, any questions?
Any questions, Ms. Cox? No questions? Ms. Timish? No. Mr. Miller? Ms. LaFawn? Ms. Crosby?
Almost a clean sweep.
Okay.
But not quite. My only question is about the brick.
Okay.
Are we going to be able to match the brick that's on there? So it doesn't...
Close. It's going to complement. So similar to Timber Creek.
Okay.
So we can't get an exact match, but you can see it's pretty close. just in the rendering. But we will pick a color that complements the 2001-87 portions of the building.
Don't want it to look like a jigsaw.
Absolutely. I'm with you.
And that was my concern was when you go back and do this, I didn't want, like, the new parts to look new and the old parts to look old.
Right,
If
right.
that makes sense.
Right.
So, but I'll be grateful when this is completed. I feel like you're my Hillary on my Love It or Leave It show. So on this project.
He's been
So,
called a lot of things, but never.
Right.
You should watch that show. It's like, this has just been in layers of uncovering different
Right.
things. And so,
Right.
but we can love it at the end.
Absolutely.
So, grateful for everything you've done.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Construction update.
He's
Yes.
got one more.
All right. So.
This is the fun slide.
So I've got a few slides for just a general construction update, really just a couple of things I wanted to show. Obviously, Mill Street is on everybody's mind. A couple of quick updates here. We moved all the boxes this weekend, so Saturday and Sunday, all the boxes were moved from Central and College into the building. Teachers, I believe 8 to 10 teachers today were setting up their rooms, and that's going to happen every day this week. We do not have the CO yet. That's what I was hoping to be able to come tonight and tell you, is that we have our TCO. We do not have it. Tomorrow is the fire marshal inspection, and we believe that's the last piece we're waiting on. And so hopefully we'll have some good news, Wednesday at the latest, we're hoping. But you'll be able to see these.
I did. Let me jump in
Sure.
for a second. I did walk the building last Thursday or Wednesday morning with the assistant city manager. And then Thursday, of course, all of us walked with the architects and construction company. And then today, Dr. Coburn and I went over this afternoon just to visit with the teachers that were working. And so we feel very good about Mill Street. We have no doubt we're going to be there next Tuesday.
I will say, it's not just a, hey, we call for one final inspection and we're done. There have been many inspections, many walks by the city, and they've been very gracious in pointing out items that, hey, fix these few things. They come back, those few things are fixed. So we're not anticipating any major surprises. I mean, there's been a lot of eyes on this and a lot of people walking through. So, all right. So a couple of pictures, front entrance. I took all these pictures this morning. So, I'm sure they changed a little bit today, but not much. So there's the front entrance of the building, the brickwork, the portico, which for quite a while they were reporting that may not be done by the first day of school. They're there. I mean, they've got the soffit underneath, the brickwork's done. It's looking great.
It's beautiful.
Kind of a panoramic of the front office there, just kind of showing it's kind of hard to see in this slide actually, but that's that stained polished concrete on the floor there, and you'll see that in the main hallways as well. That was one of those items that, again, had we opened in August, probably we would have to come back in Christmas and do. It's done now for this opening. Again, not showing up really well, but you can see the black stained polished concrete there. This is, as you walk through the secure vestibule into the school itself, this is kind of looking off towards the cafeteria. You can see the graphics in, a couple of neat shots of the graphics in the cafeteria. And then the stage in the cafeteria there. The left-hand side here is a view down the administrative hallway, kind of standing at the principal's office looking back towards the front. And the right-hand side was just to kind of show the nice ceiling. That's the front vestibule when you walk in the front door of the school. That's a really nice entrance there. Left-hand side is the kitchen, which we heard a lot about during this whole process. The equipment is hooked up, and they got the health inspection this weekend, so that's good news. The right-hand side is one of the classroom hallways, just kind of looking down the hallway. This is a picture of the library, so kind of at the front of the school, looking to the left. This is the media center. And then I've got several shots of the collaboration spaces. So this is one of them. A fantastic space. The furniture, flexible furniture. It's going to be a really nice learning environment. Here's another one, first floor collaboration space. And again, you can see some of the graphics on the wall there. Picture of a classroom, just kind of showing we do have the furniture there. That's what's kind of getting settled this week as teachers move in and get their things unpacked. couple more shots of just kind of the classroom wing, some of the water fountains, and another shot down the hallway. Then one of the other collaboration spaces on the first floor. The left-hand side, really, one of my favorite windows in the building, really, this is in the back stairwell, but it's a fantastic view. Just thought that was a neat picture. The right-hand side is just one of the restrooms. Just kind of showing some of the finishes there. And this is on the second floor now. And so if you remember, a lot of talk about the second floor, and that was the one kind of lagging behind. Well, this is a view of the collaboration space up there. Graphics on the wall, classrooms all around this collaboration space. And here's the other one on the second floor. So there's two collaboration areas on the second floor. And then here's our gymnasium. So this is a new product we've used in the gym here, where the lines are actually printed on the tiles. We've had a lot of issues with the ones where we have to cut in the lines, and so we're trying new things, trying to solve some problems that we've had. Obviously, they were cleaning up in this space today when I took these pictures, but you can see, goals are hung, wall pads are up, the bench is is in place. We have a gymnasium, and then here's a picture of the control room for the storm shelter. So these are the buttons that you would push to activate all the different systems. And this is just a battery backup UPS system in that control room. And left side, again, another shot of the library media center. And then on the right is just that main hallway, kind of standing at the gym down at that end and looking off towards the main entrance there. That's all I've got for Mill Street. I don't know if we want to stop or just keep going.
Any questions about?
What will not be done when school opens on the 15th?
So there's some miscellaneous P-lamp wall panels and things that they're still working on.
Particularly in the stairwells, they're putting P-lam in the stairwells. That won't be done.
Right. There will be some exterior, hard surface play area, which we made a change during the process of the project to get it in the right spot. Really, that'll be poured after. It's very minimal. I mean, most of the items are going to be in there. Now they are going to be working nights and weekends on punch list items and just getting things fixed up. But trophy cases aren't in yet, but I've been told every day that they're coming. They'll be here.
They were there.
Okay.
They were there this afternoon.
Okay,
they
good.
weren't put in yet, but they were there.
Good. So yeah, it's minimal. All the things are arriving and getting installed every day. So
I'm just wanting to make sure. I know that there will be a punch list.
Right.
I have no doubt that there'll be a punch list. But I want to make sure that we are as complete, since we are 9 weeks late,
right.
that we are as complete as possible for that campus, so that there is as minimal.
And I can guarantee you that those exact words have come out of all of our mouths at all the meetings, and so we've definitely made that point, and we feel like the whole team, everybody's on board with that. They're working.
And Ms. Prosnick, I like the system. Every classroom has, outside the door on the glass, has a list of things. We know this piece of technology doesn't work, and will be working by this date. So that way, we don't have 30 teachers, well, this plug doesn't work.
Right.
Well, it's on the list. And if not, they can add it to the list. So we really like that system to know, to let them know, that we know that that's not working, and here's when it's going to be fixed.
Right. We're also trying to give everybody one point of contact, and that's our LISD construction manager that's on the project. And so come to him, let him know any issues you have. But it also gives some visibility of the punch list items to the teachers, as Dr. Rogers mentioned. So they usually don't get that. They usually don't know what all's on the punch list. So
I will tell you, when we were visiting with Ms. Heinzman this afternoon, she had told Dr. Coburn and I that a couple of the teachers that were there today were crying tears of joy. I mean, just how happy, how amazing they felt. And we heard that from all the teachers we talked to today.
It's a beautiful building.
right. It really is.
And I think that it will serve our students and our staff well. I'm glad to finally see it up.
Do y'all have any questions or comments, Ms. Timish?
Thank you so much for including the pictures. I'm almost like, I'm following Mill Street Twitter. I'm like, oh, what if we should be tweeting these out? They're beautiful, getting the kids excited.
Right, absolutely.
Mr. Miller, Ms. Cox? Anything? Thank you, and I do like the updates, and I hope that these projects that we've had discussion on, that we get those updates, because it to us, and you've done a great job in keeping us updated and knowing what's going on. And I love the pictures too. That's when you finally start, especially at this stage.
Right.
Maybe not before, but at this stage.
Right.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Sells, can I just make a comment? I would like to thank the district publicly because honestly, I thought it was going to be a train wreck. I'll be real honest. Separating two schools, children's going on separate buses, food services trying to accommodate, and you guys nailed it. And very few complaints. At least I haven't had any in my email. I love how the PTA is working through and everybody's collaborating together, and both campuses have made this happen. So kudos to the district and the leadership team and the principals and staff and all of our food service people or custodians who have pulled this together and made it work. And it's going to be a great success when it opens.
Absolutely.
And we appreciate that, Ms. Cox, and there's no doubt that, and we made this well known to, when we didn't open on time, that they added a lot of work to a lot of folks in our district. But everyone involved has done a great job, and really a lot of the kudos belong to Ms. Heinzman and the way that she's led the show and her attitude. So.
Great job. Great job. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Got one more real quick. So just a couple of slides.
We
So-
want you to see what we were talking about with Thrift City.
Right. And these will go quick. So basically, Thrift City, one large square basically. And so what you're looking at is professional learning folks and our athletic director's offices. We have a little kitchen area, restrooms, some storage, and then the bulk of the space is these meeting rooms. And so you'll see it looks like a lot of smaller meeting rooms. Well, these can be opened up. This can be one larger room. This whole thing can be one room, or this entire area can be one large room. So we really tried to add some flexibility, similar to this space, but even a little more than that, really, with small meetings, large meetings, medium size, and so that's really what's going in that space.
So Randy, what's the equivalency of one of those squares as far as one of the 8? Jason told me, I can't remember. Compared to this
space that we're in right now.
Okay, so one of those squares is about a third of this space. So about 3 of those would be one of these? Okay.
So that would mean if you open up all 4 of these, you've got our boardroom in there. So.
And remember, part of this space is taken up by the front dais.
And where will the entry be? Will it be up there? So that's now on.
He'll look. That's the main entry, which is
going to face, is facing the parking lot.
So we have a couple of, so if you're going to the athletic director's office, we do have that. So the current expansion area would go off this way here. So this would be our parking lot where you would park if you're going to Dr. Rapp's office right now.
So athletics will have a separate entrance.
Correct.
In that, and it's totally separated from the rest of the building.
Exactly.
And then everything else will enter that front vestibule.
Right. And then there is a connection to the other expansion. So these doors here, we did want to provide a connection. So essentially, you could go from this building here all the way through and get in here into this portion of the building.
Feels like I'm in Chicago. All that underground network.
Right.
Yeah. Well, there's not a Starbucks on every corner.
So just a couple more quick slides. So these are just some kind of interior renderings of what the space will look like. So again, some flexible, this will be kind of the welcome center, so to speak, of that area.
And remember, we will be using, it's up to y'all, but we had talked about this previously. We would be using the William T. Boland name on this facility.
We did talk about that.
Yeah, I knew we had. Y'all could certainly change that, but we're planning to use it unless you.
Well, no, actually, I think we told the family we
I
were going to
think-
use
well,
it.
no.
If I promise a family something,
no,
I'm not
I
going to
know.
go back
No,
on
I
my word
know
on
you-
that.
I'm just saying, ultimately, y'all decide the name of the facility.
An official action.
Yeah, not
So that it's not.
not tonight, but we can.
Not tonight.
We'll put that. Yeah, we'll put that on the agenda.
And then here's just a shot looking at some of those meeting spaces. So again, a lot of glass. A lot of you can see inside that room. The flexible walls that would be able to move. So that's all I've got.
Questions?
I don't know where we are in your
We're at
order.
Mr. Miller.
My turn?
Yeah.
I don't have any questions.
Is this on? Nope. Ms. President, no questions.
Ms.
I
Cox?
have a question. Because we're doing professional learning there, are we going to have an increase in our technology budget at this facility just because of training that we're going to be utilizing at this facility?
We certainly have had discussions with Brian and his folks about the technology needs for this space, and we'll certainly have that incorporated into the budget. So that if you recall, this was one of those projects that we didn't actually have a set budget when we came. We hired the architect, we did the design, and as soon as we get the CM at Risk on board, hopefully at the 21st, we'll bring them to the table and they can do their first cost estimates for the project. But everything that we've talked about with Brian and his team, we've included in the project. So
I mean, I would presume we would need it with
absolutely,
professional learning, but
absolutely, yeah. All those meeting spaces have quite
I'm
a
sure
bit of
the
technology in
technology
there.
is just
Absolutely.
It's part of.
perfect right now.
It's part of.
Ms. Timmy?
Yes, can you go back to the slide of the entire building? So you said that we could put all 8 of those together into, use it as
That's
one
correct.
room?
Right.
I don't see any areas, or is it there, it's just not shown, where there would be like some type of platform if we had a speaker, or are we gonna have portable platforms? Because if you have that large of a room, I think you're gonna need to have some type of raised area, because I really see this space as being used a whole lot. for
That's the
teaching and
large
training.
space. Right. So, yeah, there is currently no fixed platform. Otherwise, you kind of lose some of your flexibility
I
in the
understand
smaller
that, but it
spaces.
just, are we at
It
least
would be part of it.
taking that into consideration? Because I really see this as being booked out continuously, but like even here, you're gonna need a speaker, needs
Right.
an area
Abs-
when you have this big of a space.
Absolutely. We can certainly provide that with our FF&E. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? I see none. Okay, we'll
All right.
move on to Dr. Coburn then.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Fight.
Yes, thank you.
so all my friends that have been patiently waiting can come on forward now. Miss Mattingly, Miss Rupert, Dr. Stout, Miss Jacobson. Yeah, I'm gonna do what I love to do, which is introduce this and then get out of the way and let the folks that did most of the work do this. Dr. Rogers mentioned resource stewardship this morning, and this was a great exercise in resource stewardship for us. We initially saw that at first glance we had some questions about where our money was going in our library funding, and it led us to getting a group of principals together along with Dr. Stout's expertise, and that group met several times during the 18-19 school year. I think my I statement on that was I model lifelong learning. I learned more working with that group than probably anything I've ever done, certainly in my time here. And it was a lot of fun, I think, and I think we ended up with some really good outcomes. And these fine people are here to share that with you. Oh, you need a clicker, don't you?
Oh, no,
No, I
she's
haven't.
got one. She's
I
ready.
am excited to have Dr. Stout here as part of digital learning to provide you a little bit of information on the library media service update. I'm going to pass the microphone off to Ms. Mattingly because you guys are going to be talking more than me.
Go, Robin.
Well, I wanted to start off and talk about the cornerstones, the district cornerstones that y'all are familiar with, and I wanted to tie that into the Future Ready School Librarian movement, goes along with the Future Ready Schools movement. And as you can see, they're both very colorful, and but if you take a closer look at them, you can see that there are crosswalks between the cornerstones and the Future Ready librarian. So actually what we're doing at the district level ties in with what we're already doing at the national level as well. And so as we move forward with our training and as the librarians continue to do their jobs as instructional members of the campus, they have not one framework but two that they're meeting. A side-by-side comparison of some of the I statements, all 4 of the cornerstones are represented in the Future Ready Librarian Framework. and some of the side-by-side statements are listed as well. I took some of the framework statements and put them in line with the cornerstones. So we'll take a second and walk down memory lane before we turn it over to these lovely principals here that are flanking me right now. Over on the left-hand side, you see pictures that were taken from the Lewisville High School yearbooks, circa 1950s up through the 1980s. Over on the right, you see pictures that came from our current schools. And as you can see, there is a little bit of a difference between what the library looked like back then versus what it looks like today. You'll see at the top picture with the LHS, the students are all huddled over their notebooks, writing quietly. There's a teacher standing there. The lower picture on the left are the student aides. And then over on the right, does everybody remember needing notebook cards for their research papers that they had to write? Yes, there's two students going over a notebook card. However, on the other side, on the right with today's libraries, you see a little guy working with robotics. You see two ladies demonstrating that their Lego bridge is in fact structurally sound. They are using a book to do that, by the way. But at the bottom, you see two students that are merging print and digital together in their learning. So a little bit of, I'll give you a very brief overview of some of the literature reviewed or related to school libraries and their impact on student learning. This study was taken by Keith Curry Lance, I apologize. And he does nationwide studies. This one happened to be about using the state of Colorado. And the study demonstrated that school librarians have a positive impact on student learning, and likewise, the lack of a certified trained school librarian has a negative impact on student learning. A study in Washington was conducted by Coker that added to Lance's study, and using approximately 1,500 schools in Washington State, found that there is a positive impact of a school librarian on student performance and graduation rates, even after controlling after-school size and student income. So the Coker went one step further by taking out some of the other variables and found that there was still an impact to having a certified school librarian on the campus to be on the instructional leadership team. And there's a list of additional studies if you'd like some other light reading to go along. So I wanted to also go over a bright spot. You may have been aware that LASD was in the news earlier last spring because we led the nation in ebook usage. We actually, what an additional fact of information that was not covered in that news story was that we actually spent 3 months as the highest in the world. So we were best in the world for ebook circulation. That happened because Australia was on summer vacation. They have a huge, when they're on summer break, we rule the world. And we are still top in the nation. We beat out Denver. They had been the highest previously. So last year, the media department specialists and I did walkthroughs of all of the campuses using a digital learning walkthrough document. We know that it is very well established that librarians love books, but we also wanted to take a look at some of the other aspects of their role. And here are a few of the bright spots of things that we found happening in the school libraries while we were taking our walks. And now I'd like to turn it over to the two amazing leaders that are sitting to my left and to my right. They're going to describe a little bit about the process of the principal work group, some of the conversations, and some of the outcomes. While they're doing that, I will hand you a paper copy of the 3-year financial review that is included on the next couple of slides.
I think there's no doubt that LISD has a great investment in our libraries, and I just want to reiterate, for me, growing up loving books, I remember putting the little library cards in all my personal books and having them shelved and letting my friends come over and check them out. And so I had the opportunity when I could not find a librarian to get to play librarian for about 15 months. So we went without a librarian at McAuliffe for a year and a half. And it was hard, and it's a hard job. And I got to really see what the librarians do. So when I had the opportunity to be a part of this committee, it was something that I was super invested in and provided lots of extra input every opportunity that I had, which is why he's so smart now. So I first want to say that I think it's imperative that we have a focus on our libraries, and having the opportunity to come together and talk with other campuses and other principals and looking at how we're funding our libraries was super important, and I think it says something about the well-roundedness of our district. So thank you for that opportunity. We came together, there were 6 principals, and of course these 2, and we visited about where we were getting money, because there's concerns that there are libraries that receive a lot more money than others. So as we're talking through this, I think some of our talking points became, where do we get our money? And I think we were probably chosen because we get our money from very different places. I have lots of money because I have events on my campus that bring in a lot of money. I have parents who will come in and write a check and provide us things. I have a PTA that has a very extensive budget that honestly gives us about $5,000 every year for library books and just to upgrade anything we want. I have a parent that gives $3,000 just for furniture or anything that we need in our library. So our needs are very different than the needs on other campuses. So as we worked through this process, what we realized is this was really about circulation. It was about the age of our circulation. It was about the number of books that we're putting in kids' hands, and the date of our books, making sure that we have books that are new and that are good and that are things that children want to put their hands on, and also that we're investing in things that our kids are used to using, and that's online. While I like to pick up that book and hold it in my hand, there's a lot of kiddos that had much rather look at it online, and that's okay. So supporting all of those things was really difficult because we were coming from all different places and we all had different needs. But when we really boiled it down to the important piece, it was really those 3 things. And so we talked about how to get those 3 things. And the district provides great support in numbers. And that's one of the things that I learned while I got to play librarian was who to call to get them to put all the numbers in and to put the books in. And my books have to match her books that have to match everybody else's books, because when I need a book that I don't have, I can go to all the resources throughout our district. And that's amazing. So by having access to all of that information, we also can look at where our numbers are and make sure that we're in line with the state qualifications, and to make us an exemplary place and to meet the guidelines and expectations of the state. So our end result was, and I'll let you jump in, our end result, bottom line, was that we want to maintain control over how we're funding our libraries, and in a time when we're looking at being frugal and being responsible of our district's money, that we don't necessarily need somebody to say, okay, here's this money, this is what you're going to do with it. That instead, we're held accountable to how we use our money and how we go out and get that money, whether it be through grants, LEF, whether it be through funding from our parents and through community events that we host. But that as long as we're meeting those qualifications, that we're doing a fantastic job and we're putting those resources in our kids' hands. So I felt like we had a really great meeting and came out with something that all of us felt really good about. And I hope I didn't say everything.
Well, and the positive thing is to think about it wasn't just a school like Miss Mattingly's. It was also schools like Huffines. It was Creekside was there. We had LHS Killow was there. And so it wasn't just elementary schools. It wasn't just middle schools. There was also a high school aspect to it. And to talk about where I have a great PTA, but my PTA might not be as involved as Ms. Mattingly's PTA, or they might be involved in different ways than her PTA is. But I also have access to different funds that Ms. Mattingly doesn't have access to because I am a Title I school. And so being a title school, I receive federal funds from that piece. You know, we also talked about, we receive funds for GT students, and we utilize that for just our GT kids. But we also talked about really looking at numbers and looking at the data and determining what do our libraries look like. And then talking about how, as principals, sometimes we don't necessarily understand or know that information. And so not only did we talk about the data ourselves, we also we're now having been provided the information about our libraries and what is in our libraries. How is our circulation happening? How much money did we spend on our library per student, and how is it utilized? And so it was very informative. And then to talk to other principals of sort of kind of getting to pick their brains of how do you fund your library and get your kids in there to check out those books. So it was a very informative thing. And I feel like our viewpoint that we get every spring now as principals helps us to determine and allocate, do I need more funds to my library for next year when I'm looking at my budget, or are we allocating the amount that we need to based on what we have?
The accountability piece that we ended up coming up with would just be that if we meet the qualifications, it was super simple. We loved it. If you meet the expectations, you don't have to do anything. And if you don't, then you meet with your chief and you come up with a plan and you look at how you're going to reach a goal. It may be a situation where you know you want something that's 2 years out, so you're going to hold some funds back to try to reach that goal. It's a continual process, if you're not super familiar with the libraries, that you're having to weed the books that have older copyrights, but then that cuts your circulation, your number down because you don't have enough books, and you're constantly having to buy new books, and they're expensive. So you have to play this cycle to make sure that the date of your collection is new and appropriate, but also that you're providing enough books. So there's all the different prongs, but if we meet those, then the principals don't have anything that they really have to do. You just have to continue monitoring it. But if you don't, then you would have the opportunity to visit with your chief and come up with a plan, and they have that information for you on this paper.
So this, the next few slides are actually, the next few slides after that were the information that is reported to the principals is tied into the state standards, the Texas State Library and Archive standards. And I put snippets of those standards up for you for collection size, circulation age, and budget. Those are all included. And so the annual report that we came up with at my office had the last couple years when we started moving the librarians into the LEAD evaluation tool. One of the 32 points of LEAD was actually maintaining an accurate collection according to state standards. And so this top part here had been given out to the principals to use in their librarian's LEAD document. The bottom portion is what we came up with during, and this is a sample showing generally the top line in yellow is what the district average is at that grade level. We're not going to compare elementary to high school for obvious reasons. And then the blue line would be how the campus compares to that. Obviously, since our collection is LASD, they're going to be identical. The campuses would be different than that. And then there's a table underneath that chart, that graphic, to show in numbers, numerically, and then also to show the how that relates to the standards. The portion of this form that was added as a result of the work group is the bottom portion. So if the campus was found to be improvement needed on funding, then they would have to fill in. The principal would have to sit down with the school chief and find out. I can report the funding as I have it, but their funding may not show up on my reports. Like Jennifer's PTA funds will not show up on my reports. The Title I money may not necessarily show up on my reports when I just pull Function 12. And so that's an opportunity for the administrators to tell their story, to say, this is what I'm doing to rectify this situation. Or
mine says improvement needed, but no, I've got this money here that you don't have access to show you that, yes, we are doing what is right for the students. We also have items that were purchased for classroom libraries that students still have access to that are not part of the general library collection, nor is it reflected in the general library funding. And then if they're still showing that they are at improvement needed, or if they're one of the other ratings that are not financial are showing that they are below skilled, which would be improvement needed or developing, then they have an opportunity to sit down with their librarian and go over their library program goals. That could be collection size, that could be copyright age, that could be improving the circulation of the, of the items. And so it's more of a comprehensive picture than what we had been using previously.
I think to that point again, going back to the slide about leading the world, when Australia's on vacation, right? But, I love that. But the e-books, which is basically the equivalent of a book in everyone's library, does not show in any of this.
Correct.
And you don't see the funding side of that at all. So you're looking at only part of the story because you're not looking at the e-book story when you're looking here, which was part of what we wanted to do in this, to make sure we know we've got an appropriately sized collection, an appropriately aged collection, and that we're getting the circulation to kids that we need in every pathway. So the financial piece was one that, if we're not where we need to be, they have to come up with a plan to get there.
And that was really my takeaway. In my previous role, I know we had the discussion, Dr. Stout and others in schools, about what's the right balance, e-books and so on. And I'm very grateful for the work that LISD has done and Robin and her group has done with e-books. And then I really appreciate, as a principal, this form that this group created just to help inform them about decisions about their library, which was really the purpose of this. And so I greatly appreciate the work.
I may have just hijacked your next slide. I'm sorry.
No, you did not, and that actually, thank you for bringing that up, because that was my next slide. So
I think we're...
Yes. I think we start with these. Mr. Miller?
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for this presentation. So Michelle knows this. Some of the things I'm going to say, I'm not talking to you guys. So just know that in advance. I appreciate the work on this. It raises some concerns for me. So I fully appreciate we have campuses where we have very generous parents. And alternatively, we have campuses that have other sources of monies. I would rather see Title I dollars go to resources, staff, those types of things that you could put them to, rather than creating equity in a library. The same token, Joe, I see this a little bit kind of like Booster Club, the Booster Club discussion. I think there's an element of overfunding, right? When we look at equity and what our job is with 68 schools, and we've got some campuses that get great resources in their library because they've got generous families, and others have some gaps. It seems to me that the real big sense of urgency is give us an inventory of the campuses that have a gap. Tell us what that is. Give us a chance to approve it. And if you have a process that you need to go through later that says, here's what we need to do to fix out whatever metrics you use, then you guys can do that. But I am uncomfortable that we have any gaps at all. And if those gaps exist, let us fix that financially today. And if you guys have to reconcile, come up with a process later to reconcile that, so be it.
Can I speak to that?
So let me ask a question first, and then Estella. I think going into this, and I'm going to ask Dr. Stout this, but going into this, I think we had some of the same concern, but I think we were pleasantly surprised as far as there aren't the gaps that we thought there might be. But I'd rather you hear from the experts, so.
It actually has, even just having this process and having it presented to the principals and having pardon me?
The breakdown.
The breakdown, right, presented to, for the last several years, we've actually seen improvement. Several years ago, we had some gaps. This year, we have one elementary school that is not meeting this level. And it was because we did very heavily in order to help with her campus and her refresh and et cetera, et cetera. And I've had multiple conversations with the librarian on that campus and the principal that they are well aware of that. And so even just the fact that there's a phrase that what gets measured gets done. And so when this data was being shown to the principals, it kind of made them aware of the fact that there was a gap. And so we have been making quite good progress over the last several years to take care of that.
And Dr. Stout, would it be fair to say that if you had serious concerns, I mean, you would voice those to Dr. Coburn? And,
absolutely,
I
yes.
mean, so
yes. I'd go to the principal first.
I think, Mr. Miller, the good part is that it's being paid very closely, attention to as far as each campus, because there's one of these for every single
school.
campus, so,
Yeah, so
which wasn't in
we
place.
just have one campus that's fallen short?
Well, and they won't be, they're hoping not to be this year. It takes a few years to build this, and actually having been at LHS during one of the years when there was a large infusion of cash, because they had fallen short prior, what happens is if you buy a lot of materials in 1 year, then when that ages out, suddenly a large portion of your collection is gone again and aged. And so that often happens when campuses are a certain age, that the materials that were all bought together when the school opened up age out at approximately the same time. And so it takes a few years for the campus to make a plan to adjust for those materials. And like I said, that the principal she knows it, she's aware of it, and we're all working together to make sure that.
I appreciate that. Whatever campus that is, they just need to call Mattingly to get the money for the rest of it.
Right. I'll let them know.
But, so, I guess, and maybe this is a broader discussion, there's what meets here, and then taking a look at what other campuses are doing and what that segmentation looks like. And I am there getting to an issue of equity and fairness, and that's why Dr. Coburn, I think it's a little bit consistent with the booster club discussion. I mean, should a campus that raises excess amounts of money to buy fantastic uniforms is that equitable versus campuses that can only afford to take the basic allotment? I think, our fundamental philosophy that we always want to try and operate by is we want some campus leadership autonomy, and in the same token, we want to close that gap. And the gap is not, okay, we just met, and then we have other campuses that just get a lot of extra money. We somehow have to close that gap without depriving the kids who are on campuses that can raise a lot of money. I mean, it just seems to me that there's something else to care for here. And I don't know exactly what it is, but my gut tells me that there's campuses where, when they, if a campus meets but can't do robotics, I don't know if that's possible, but let's just say that it is. Is that equitable? And if the answer is that it's not, then I think we should look at, you guys are going to get 100% of what you don't ask for. You don't ask for it, you're not going to get it. But if there's something there that we could do to help do more than what we've got today to close the gap with campuses that are getting excess amounts of funds, and keep a campus from having to spend, I remember August of 2014, we had a principal come before us. It was Vickery. And they were going to use, the question was how they were going to use their Title I dollars. They want to buy iPads. You remember that? And my question was, why should they use Title dollars to buy iPads that we're giving to campuses anyway, right? That's what they felt they had to do. So, again, there's ways that some campuses get funding, but maybe that funding should go to something else, and we should provide the resources through another means.
Can I jump in on that? I think that's where you have to hire good principals, and you have to trust them to make sure that we're putting in the hands of our kids and our staffs what they need. And I think when we have a rubric that we've created that allows us to have the opportunity to make those decisions, but there's a threshold that says we're not going below this. And if we do, then we're going to involve the people who need to be involved. That closes that gap, because how I choose to spend my money is very different than how somebody else chooses. But I look at title schools and I'm thinking, I'm sitting at lunch tables that are like this, and you have brand new lunch tables because you have the money to spend on those. So it's when you start talking equity, we're going to go much bigger than our library. So I think with this, we've set a standard of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And I think when you start bringing it into a much bigger picture, then it's a much bigger picture. I choose to use my money for the library and a lot of other things. But I think ultimately when you look at the numbers and you really break down where the individual campuses are, you're going to see that we're all doing what's best for our campuses. And I think that's where I think that's right now the best way to focus and be good stewards of our resources, is to allow our principals to make sure we're meeting those expectations, and then the ones that don't, address those individually. And then if we need interventions on the part of the district, I don't think anybody would mind that. But just, I think right now, the committee felt like, trust us to use the money, and if we need something, we're going to reach out for it. We're going to ask for that money.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. Like, when we looked at the data, we looked at the whole
Every
district.
school.
We looked at every single individual school, whether they were a title school or not a title school, and we didn't look at how much. We also looked at how much money they were spending per kid, but we looked at their circulation rate. We looked at the age. We looked at all those pieces that we need to look at, and we looked at it color coded. We looked at by percentage. We looked at by dollar amount. We spent time with it, and we really talked about it, and that's what we came across of. My dollar amount might look different than her dollar amount because we use our money differently, but as far as circulation and date, which is the most important part, and that our kids are using our library, which is the most important part, they are.
We looked for a trend that we ended up not finding. I think we all hypothesized that we would see older and smaller collections at schools with higher low SES populations. And in point of fact, we didn't see that. We couldn't make any sort of a correlation between socioeconomic status of the student population and collection age, size, or circulation. And that's actually what led us to go down a different path. I think we all expected to say, we got to figure out how to fund the libraries at schools that maybe don't have as robust a PTA or do a chili cook-off like Jennifer does. So that's actually where we began. So I totally see where you're coming from there.
Yeah, and Mr. Miller, I know we share the equity concern. I think this was a great first step, because you have to know what you're measuring and have the data to then figure out if you have gaps, and really that's, and the other thing is, and I think it speaks to what Ms. Mattingly talked about, you're absolutely right. Every campus ought to have the right to offer robotics, but they might, instead of offering robotics, offer something else, and so everyone shouldn't be forced to offer robotics. They might offer something in place of robotics. And so, and I know you believe that as far as choice. So I think it's a great first step. We'll continue. I promise you, if we need funding for libraries, we will create another budget.
I was just going to suggest that Jennifer take her $3,000 for the tables in the library.
I'm not going to tell my college parents that, hey, you're going to have to send it.
I'm going to invite you over to have lunch at one of those
she got
cricket
new
tables.
tables in the kitchen or cafeteria? She didn't.
Okay, I don't have new tables at my cafeteria, by the way. If you get new tables, I would like new tables.
I know we're
Because then that goes in my
Okay, Ms.
CIP,
Lasan.
3 budget quotes. I can tell you how to use title money.
I know we're getting a little punchy here. It's after 9 o'clock, so this is great and very exciting. And as kind of the newbie on the board, I've never seen this particular
No, it is needs improvement. The state standards say something slightly different than LEAD,
Okay.
and so it's kind of word soup.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make, comparing things. The other little question I have is on your grid here, where it says like 2017-18, and then underneath it says 199. What is that mean?
That's general funds.
General funds.
Yeah,
Okay,
199
that's just for
funds.
Okay, that's all I got.
As you know, I am so appreciative of the work that went into this. And I really appreciate the report. I don't know if the board looked into it, but it was in our August 23rd board letter was the summary of the work that you all did, and greatly appreciated. I have a few questions. It's shocking. Could you provide the rubric? Because I don't know what skilled is when I look at this. I don't know what skilled is. I don't know what accomplished is, and things of that nature. So
Absolutely.
if you could provide just what that measurement looks like, I'd appreciate it. Also, I didn't know, somewhat to Mr. Miller's point, I didn't know, because we do have a great deal of maker spaces now in our libraries, and they were in the pictures that you provided of what our libraries look like now. Was there any point of putting, even if it's just a check the box at this point, do you have a maker space in your library? Was that a consideration?
I don't think it was something that was really discussed. I think we were really focused on books and ebooks. And because Makerspaces isn't part of the state standards, that we didn't look at that.
I would suggest, I would consider it as a consideration, because once again, the pictures that you showed, I'll be blunt, makerspaces on the right. And I think that they're an important part. Our libraries aren't just for books, they're media centers as well. My next question is about SORA. Do you get a report by school on SORA?
I can go and download reports off of their dashboard and sort it by school, yes.
And I'm a big fan of SORA. I wish two things. I wish there was a way to age identify in SORA so that children didn't have opportunities for oops moments in checking out too mature material for themselves.
I do when I do the collection. Adults have access to everything.
Okay.
But elementary, I go through and I read the reviews and and then make sure that the age-appropriate titles are only to elementary. And then the librarians, because I am human and I'm handling, thousands of resources, I will tell the librarians, if you do catch that, let me know so I can go change the access level. And so we have 3 separate access levels. So you might see everything in the
Okay.
district. The high school students have the opportunity to go down and read the little picture books if they'd like. But elementary elementary and middle particularly are set up to be age appropriate.
Okay, good, because
Yes, you see
Wow.
some interesting things on there.
Yeah,
Yes, you do. Yes. And no, but the kiddos do not. And as a matter of fact, when we worked with the vendor to identify issues like that, because at first they were showing the covers of all of the books, and the child could click on it and just not open anything. Well, some of those covers are a little bit racy too for the young ones. And we worked with the vendor until they managed to rewrite their coding so that only the covers of the titles that the students have access to are the only ones that show
Okay.
up on their
very
on
good.
their app.
That makes me feel so much better.
Yes.
Because I was searching with
Oh, sure.
one of my
Yeah.
mentees. And then it's my new library initiative this year for myself. And that is that I've discovered that we don't have a lot of foreign language books in our libraries, especially on our dual language campuses. And being read to in your native language helps you acquire the second language. And so I want to know what we're doing to expand. I know that SORA certainly we've discussed, have those. But I will tell you the campus I was most surprised at was Lily Jackson. I was very surprised at the very limited number of foreign language books in their library, because those are the exact students that I want acquiring English. And the best way for them to acquire English is actually to acquire their native language first. and that is to be read to. And that is something I would like to see in our libraries. I would like to see thoughtfulness in bringing that foreign language books into the libraries so that students can go and find their native language on our shelves and take it home and be read to or read it themselves. I think that, especially on our dual language campuses, I think that should be part of I think it should be part of the rubric, to be blunt. I think it should be part of that rubric of how large is that specific collection, because I think it speaks to that population that's on that campus.
Absolutely.
So
We're in the process of identifying, I went through and looked at the dual language campuses and the Spanish immersion campuses, which Lily Jackson is not on that official list, and worked with other administrators in the learning and teaching department, because we have quite a bit of money that's put into the classroom libraries there that the students can walk across the room and grab a copy of, in addition to compiling the information from the school libraries and compiling it together so we can have a picture of the overall picture of the resources that students have available to them. And I wanted to thank you for bringing some of that to our attention, because it was not necessarily on the radar. So thank you.
yeah, as you know, I'm a library nut. Just ask poor Dr. Rogers. I was looking. You sent McAuliffe's in your thing, and so I was looking at that, and so this Texas standard is $12 a student, and at McAuliffe, this is now going to be an eye test, it's $8.35. So is the goal then? But you're excelling on. I want to make that you're accomplished in your size. I want to make sure I did. So I not just focus on the money. That you're accomplished on your collection size, and you're skilled on your circulation, and you're skilled on your copyright age. But I also, through the rubric thing, I don't know where that falls on the list.
I can get you that.
I'm pretty sure skilled is up at the top, but that's me. Does that mean for you, as the principal, do you look at that and go, I could be spending more, or I'm spending the right amount, or if I get some extra money, I'm going to put it in the library to get closer to that, whatever, that $12 number that comes from the sky, from the National Association?
I think that's where that's why I was kind of so adamant about us having that power, because what that doesn't include is any money that's donated to me, or any of the money that I'm putting into it. It only is what money she's able to report. So the report from Eunice doesn't give an accurate reflection of how much is really going into that when you look at donations, when you look at the money that we're putting in.
So you're probably more at that,
Yes.
or exceeding, would be my guess.
I would hope.
So would it be fair to say that number being at 8 and its target is 12, but you're spending other money, but that then creates another conversation with the assistant chief as to, okay, how are you getting your
Exactly.
to that point? You're saying, hey, I've done $5,000 that was donated to us. We put in the library.
Right.
Okay.
Which is why we wanted to have that threshold and looking at the circulation age, and if we meet those standards, then we know that even though I'm only spending $8, I'm still getting the money in there somehow. Even if it doesn't include your book fairs. So that money's going into the library, and that's why we kind of, it might not look equitable, but we really are using our own skills to get what we need.
Right, which is why I like that
Yes.
rubric. And what I like also about it is that it opens up that conversation.
Absolutely.
I've often said that unless you have an advocate for a librarian, or you're married, or the principal is married to a librarian, or the child of a librarian, they don't know how much to spend in the library. I mean, I just don't think that, oh, I should be spending this amount of money. I think you kind of look at last year's budget and you go, they're cutting everything by 3%. I'm going to cut the library by that amount, et cetera. So I think this is a really good conversation starter on those campuses. So really, I so appreciate this work. I really, really do. And I think it is a way for us to be good stewards of money, and to, more than anything else, just be mindful I think that as principals, I say they're mini cities, and this is just part of your little town, and you're not necessarily an expert in it, but I think this gives you the opportunity to have that conversation. So I really appreciate the work.
Thank you. Yes, very appreciative of the work, and I just want to thank Ms. Prosnick for bringing this to the attention, because this is something I feel is very important to our district. And I mean, literacy is key. If you can't read, you really can't probably do many of your subjects. So this is really important. So a couple of the questions I have is, Ms. Prosnick's answered one. When I tour the campuses, that's probably one of the number one things I get is we don't have enough Spanish books in our collection. So I don't know where that comes from, but probably need to do that. The other thing is, what are we doing to look at our libraries to see, because at one point in time when I first got on the board, they were the iPad fixers, and that didn't go over very well. We all know how that went down. Was not a big supporter of that either. So how are we working with our librarians? And definitely the principals in here, you're the leader on the campus, so you should be able to decide what the needs are of your campus. But Ms. Prosnick kind of alluded to it with the makerspace. Our libraries aren't libraries anymore. Look at our freshman campuses. I mean, they have a little square little area with barely any books in it. It's become a different innovative place. But what are we doing with our schools to look at the innovation and making it into maker spaces or whatever the campus might need, because it might be just a meeting area or might be something else above and beyond what the library is. So that's my first question. And then, do you want me to ask all of them or just wait?
Let's do one at a time.
Yes, one at a time.
We can answer that one, because I know I just hired a librarian a couple of years ago, and the tools and knowledge that she has is very different than some of the librarians that were probably trained when I was going to school 25 years ago. And her, sitting with her and having that conversation about her goals as well, of what she wants to do, and her time of wanting to support the classroom and the teacher and the students, and the things that she comes up with and the lessons that she presents, and wanting to create a makerspace and kids are wanting to be in the library is an exciting thing to be a part of, and to ensure that she is in front of students and she is in front of teachers and she's a leader of teachers is a very important piece that we support, and I can see a change in our aspect, at least with my library. And I know you had a new one as well.
I just started a new one last year, or 2 years ago. And like I said, I went a year and a half without. And the lesson that I learned from that was we have to take care of our librarians. And we're unfortunately not known to be a district that really takes great care of our librarians. We abuse them. He wanted a shirt that said "Stop Librarian Abuse." We put them in the rotation. We ask them to do a job that's not what we hired them to do. We have them shelving books, and we have them covering classes and covering for a PLC over here, a PLC that they should actually be in, but they can't. So first of all, our commitments really need to be about respecting our librarians for the role that they are expected to play in the 21st century. And that's very different than the Dewey Decimal System. Our librarians have moved over to where they look more like Starbucks, and we've shifted away from having them in alphabetical order, and we have to support those people. But in order to do that, we have to train our administrators and our support personnel to know what to look for in a good library. Our librarian is the most important part of our campus. It's the hub. And if we have a great library, there's so many things that are going to be better for our campuses, not just our reading, but like our emotional state. Our kiddos who just don't have a place, where do they go? The library. When you don't have a friend to sit with at lunch at middle school, you go to the library. At elementary school, our kids, if they don't want to be in the cafeteria, they go to the library. So that library plays a much bigger picture than just the number of books that are on that shelf. And I think we have to protect that, and we have to make sure that we're really going out and recruiting fantastic librarians. And I had the opportunity to hire one, and I came so close, and she's one of the top in the entire state. I mean, I called her and said, I want the best librarian in the state. I want the list, top 5. And she said, why? And I said, because I want the very best. And she laughed and said, no way. So I picked 2 out of the top 5, sent an email actually, blind called her, and she came in, and I mean, she was coming, and she said, I did a presentation last week, and they asked me about being in the rotation, and she said, I can't ethically go in and have conversations and be a leader in this state and talk about libraries not being in the rotation and come to a district that I know there's a good chance that you could put me in the rotation. And so she just said no. And I was devastated, and that's why I went a year without while I found someone. So our conversations are exactly that. We've got to train them, we've got to respect them, and we've got to put them in allow them to do the job that we have asked them and hired them to do.
Well, I think the greatness is in middle school. I don't have to put her in her shoes, so she gets to go do. It's a little different. We get to do, but yeah, and love on them and make sure that they get to do what they want to do.
Thank you, Ms. Natalie, because you said it best, and that is exactly what my point is. We have to take care of our librarians because I've seen it in the campus, and it really warms my heart when you watch a librarian, you watch a little kindergartner go and they grab a Harry Potter book that's probably not ready for them to read, and the librarian redirects and shows them, well, here's on grade reading level, and check out these books. Like, oh, it's just, it's really helping direct and guide our kids in the best way possible. They're the experts on the campus, so really appreciate that. So hopefully the district, Dr. Rogers, will make an effort to take care of our librarians.
And he has said that before at the principal meetings, that is a focus that they're trying
Yes.
that they're absolutely examining. So we're not hung out to dry necessarily, but it is.
And we have a great leader that really
Absolutely.
Okay, the next one is, you talked about or retiring books or archiving them. How often does that happen, and what do we do with those books?
It depends based on the individual school. I also offer a service, what I used to call Weeding Wednesdays, which if their collection is getting up into that orange zone, it's not improvement needed yet, but matter of fact, we had a number of this goes to one of the things we were talking about with Mr. Miller earlier, that they were saying that, the titles were getting aged. I would target those schools particularly and say, give me your schedule, I'll come out and I will take care of that, some of that for you. Because I know when they're seeing hundreds of kids a day and circulating thousands of books a week, that they don't have time to crawl around in the shelves and check copyright dates. And I happen to love that sort of thing, so I'll come out and spend a little bit of time doing that for them. But some approach it differently than others. Some will go and do something every single year. Some of them will let it go a few years until they start nudging up, and then they will do a larger project. As long as they keep their overall age within the standards, they're the experts, they're the professionals, both with their time and their campus and their collection, that I let them do what works best for the individual campus, the individual school. But when they do drop into the red, that's when I reach out. And sometimes they have said, and actually this year we only have one in the red, and she's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that because I did it last spring. I guess I didn't do enough. And so they're really starting to pay attention to that now. Or again, when they want help, I will reach out and say, I will come help you.
And where do those books go?
The books, actually, we do what's a form that's called a fixed asset transfer, and we send them to the distribution warehouse where they're sold at auction. If the books are still, often what might happen with some of the fiction books that were not showing high circulation, because you're not going to get rid of Dr. Seuss, I don't care how old he is. You're not going to get rid of Shakespeare, I don't care how old he is. But if they're not circulating and they're not earning their place on the shelf, then they're removed. And the fiction books, as long as there's not inaccurate information in them, they're offered to the teachers for the teachers to put them in their classrooms. And then, but the nonfiction titles, like I don't want people thinking that Pluto is still a planet, even though we're not sure because it's kind of going back and forth. We don't want people thinking that John Lennon is still alive. We don't want people thinking that Aikman is still the quarterback of the Cowboys. And those sat on our shelves at one point. So those get sent off to the warehouse and the distribution center, and they will auction those off.
Thinking of a bus for the summer that our kids could read and have a reading bus.
Yes, Denton did one of those. It took her about 5 years to get the grant and get it up and running. And yeah, it's an amazing program that they.
I love putting books in the hands of kids. So
absolutely.
Thank you again for the presentation. Oh, one more thing. I can't hardly read this. My eyes are really going quickly, and I hate to admit to it. But can we get this in a PowerPoint, or is it on somewhere the group where I could see it? I can enlarge it.
Absolutely, yes. We have a Google slide that I can send out right now, have sent out.
Okay, thank you. So how is it, I know we had like 17 new principals this year. Are we having conversations with them? So, I'm sure this is at the bottom of the list with all the things that they're doing. So how are those campuses tracking?
I have not been able to get, because our budget year just began, I have not been able to get this year's data yet. That's something that I generally start pulling around January and then have the conversations. Their collections so far are on track. And that's what we're looking at first is, the librarians are still doing their part of the, their portion of the job, but we have not started tracking the funding aspect of it yet.
Okay, and then you also mentioned that you could hold funds, I think you said, for like a couple of years. How does that work from an LASD standpoint? If you had a larger project, you said sometimes principals will hold the funds.
If you need new furniture, so I may save up some money for a few years because I want those really cool tables that connect, or I need some new chairs. So I would hold money to be able to purchase that because it's such a large investment.
And that's not 199 funds, that's student activity funds, so not budgeted money.
That was like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't want them saving
I
their
got
money
you.
and then us.
Can I? Well, Jennifer just reminded me that we did a session at Thrive over the summer on how not to use your librarian and talked about the things that they do as instructional and technological leaders on the campus and how they can best be utilized. And I apologize for interrupting.
No, I mean, I think that that's great because if we maybe had a reputation, it sounds like an LASD not having the most loving landing spot for librarians to want to come to our district. We're changing that culture. So how are we communicating that to our librarians? I guess just the principals, somehow we're training up the principals.
I think really for many principals who may not be, like I obviously love the library. There are other principals who may love something else. So I think by bringing this to the conversation and having some accountability to it, it forces everyone into the conversation, which provides value to our librarians. I don't think, Lewisville's a great place to be. I mean, it's the perfect place to be. We're always looking for ways that we can improve, and attracting librarians, it would be a great way, but we also know that we're in a time where we have to look at where money is, and this is, it's one of those times where it's more lean. So we understand that, but as we're looking at opportunities, keeping those librarians out of the specials rotation is a very expensive endeavor. But if we're going to make that next step, it's something that we probably need to look at. And if we want to attract the best of the best, those are going to be the things that they insist on.
And I think the only thing I would add to that too, just having, the conversation about all the different things that schools provide and don't provide. There are schools who don't even provide library media specialists per school. And so I do think that it's been a significant commitment, continued commitment, and our librarians, and having had the opportunity to meet with many of them over the course of working with Robin and Michelle, and they're so appreciative that we're a place known to have library media specialists in every single one of our schools, and that we don't split those positions across schools. And so I do think that does speak well for our school district also.
Okay, good.
Dr. Rapp
I'm a bookworm, so I love libraries. So
she's done an amazing job building some relationships with some of the librarians, especially at secondary, across the board actually, when they had some concerns about some of the budget cuts, and really did a phenomenal job of listening and making some changes and hearing what they said and addressing their needs. And huge kudos to her. So I think it's just those things that we have to continue to do to show that value in them and to make sure that we continue to attract those great people. But I think we have all the right people in the places that are working hard at it. It's just going to be a process.
Okay. The ebooks that we have, are they campus specific, or can they be checked out across different campuses?
They're actually both. We have a collection that is purchased at the district level, and the rationale for that was
to be good stewards of the funding. If I purchase, say, 5 copies of a title and open it up to all of the elementary schools, that's the same as each one of them buying one, and so the district is actually saving money by doing a shared shelf. That said, let's say that the campus, I purchased copies of a series that tends to be very, very popular on that campus and the kids are clamoring for it. The librarian can supplement the district shelf by having their own school collection. And the app runs them all together. The kids don't know which ones are bought by the district and which ones are bought by the school, but that way the librarian can also add titles that perhaps I had not chosen, or can add additional copies that are available just for the kids at that school.
Okay, and just because I don't know the answer to this, for the ebooks, is that something that they can check out through their local public library as well? Is that something we provide resources to if we're short at a campus? Or is that just one more thing we just have not touched yet?
The public libraries work off different platforms than we do. If they have a library card, they can actually go to, it's an entirely separate app. I've coordinated with the directors over the years, and everybody kind of buys their own product. And so their products are not Sora, they're not Overdrive.
Okay, so that's just not something we can piggyback off. Okay. And then we'll just, so that we're not worried about the one campus that's in the red, will you circle back with us when, and I do know that I know several of us are in Rotaries or different events, like our community really loves libraries, and that's an easy sell. So if there's ever somebody that's in that red, if there's a way to communicate that. I mean, I know we're always looking for like opportunities to provide resources sometimes in the community. Just knowing if there's a need, I think then we can meet it. Although I think all 70 campuses would then say that they need books, which I get, but there was a critical need, that we could help meet that.
And they were right on the cusp. It's not like they were, way low. They were just right on the cusp because she did additional weeding for construction over the summer. But yes, absolutely. I will circle back around. Thank you.
How many languages are on Sora?
I'd have to get the exact number, but I believe it's in the high teens, low 20s, the number of items that you can purchase.
I'd be interested in knowing those languages and how they're used in the district for our information. That was the one thing. And then the rotation out because of copyright. So the classics, are they completely disappeared out of the libraries, or how or is that the percentage that's not the percentage that's the newer?
So a lot of times they'll resurface or republish a book. And so like Henry and Beeze's, which was fabulous, or like Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing, they're going to put a new cover on it that's going to make it more intriguing and interesting to our kiddos. So even though it might have the same guts, we have to purchase a new copy of it because they're not going to read it when it looks yucky, just for lack of a better way to say it. So they come out with, when they have a new copyright, and then we can purchase newer ones. Or if they don't, we still try to keep them around, but we try to purchase something that has a newer cover that would be more interesting.
Well, I think all my other questions were answered by, or were asked by other people, but I just want to say thank you for your work. I think that a lot of us are book geeks, and I think that it makes huge difference. And my kids, I know ebooks were just out when my son came home and showed me, and I had no idea that's what was going on. Are the kids still limited? Do they still get like 2 or 3 ebook checkouts? Which helped him because then he read faster because he wanted to get that new one that was coming out. So they are limited still.
They have 4 they can have out concurrently. And so if you have more than 4 out, you do have to return one of those 4. However, it used to be when we first purchased the platform years ago, it was actually a different platform, they were limited that they were only doing updates once a night. And so overnight. And now the updates are within minutes. So that's one of the improvements that we've had that, okay, I could have 2 or 3 ebooks and I can't get any more until tomorrow, but now it's within a matter of minutes.
Thank you all. Thank y'all for making this opportunity for our kids, and thank you for everything you do for the campus. Appreciate it. If there's no other comments or questions, seeing none, thank y'all so much for coming.
Thank you.
If there's no further business,
Thank y'all.
Thank y'all so much.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, Stella, Rob.